Live.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the South Russell Village Special Council meeting on strategic planning. Today is Monday, September the 12th, 5:30 p.m. Fiscal officer will take the roll.
Kavanaugh. Here. Leahy.
Here.
Porter.
Here.
Berger.
Here.
Manning.
Here. Okay, I passed out an agenda, a tentative agenda, looking at time, and I set aside the first 10 minutes to review the initial meeting with Dr. Scott Allen. It's up on the screen above Danielle's head. This is about 6 weeks ago. Any comments, questions, or concerns about what Dr. Allen presented to us? Okay. Came up with some best practices, questions that we should avoid. Inactivity, slow movement, complacency, thinking we have all the answers, egos and fighting and bureaucracy. All right. No concern about Dr. Allen. All right, let's go on to the agenda. Looking at time. I want to set aside 10 minutes. Discussion on the need to hire a strategic planner. Knowing that we have people that have taught the course, people who have been involved with it, we need to hire a strategic planner. First thing that I will say frankly is if we keep it in-house, we will lose some of our objectivity. So that's probably one of my biggest concerns. Is the reason why you want to hire a person. Looking at the other hand, this is in mid-September. We barely got SMART goals in from everybody. We have the budget coming in less than a month, starting budget meetings. So I think we've got some things to consider. I'm done.
Comment on that, from my experience, I find that someone administrative third party is very beneficial. Otherwise, I found in instances where there wasn't someone like that, there's a lot, you get sidetracked a lot. So in an effort to stay focused, I would suggest it, but I don't know how much it costs.
Is this person going to develop a strategic plan or facilitate us developing a strategic plan?
Should facilitate us, keep us focused on what next steps we need to move forward with planning. I would write for us to help us write essentially, you know, in my experience.
Do they have that cost there?
I know Dr. Allen, so question. 2 years ago, I had a professor at Cleveland State talk about having graduate students do it free for us. I think we're probably talking maybe 5,000 to 10,000. I had 7 people give it to me, strategic planners. The best one I've heard is a professor in the business management at Cleveland State, but that was also a colleague. What's that?
At Cleveland State
Yes,
College?
yes, a colleague. And very good things about it. And
Is his first name Ben?
yes, okay,
No.
yeah, I think you had the end of Cleveland State, so. So, we could look around and talk to people. Mr. Berger, I would imagine you have some connections with strategic planners.
Absolutely.
Danielle, you're down there now. Strategic planner.
But I did reach out to Cleveland State, they have anybody to help around the funding at this time.
Okay. Jerry, any comments about hiring a strategic planner?
Well, the concept of strategic planning itself, I think, is a good idea. To reflect where we've been, where we're at, and of course, where we want to go in the future. A job like this, in council, is important to have vision.
Is what?
They have a vision for the future. Where we're at now and where we want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. we most likely won't be on council at that time, but
Who knows, Jerry?
I was on strategic plan committee, went out to Berkshire schools, and it was helpful. It was helpful, because we had a chance to sit down and reflect upon what our goals are now, and to streamline them, and take a look at the future.
I would say if we had, I think most presidents are happy. We have very small, isn't even a percentage of unhappy residents, so I'm thinking, do we need this? Objectivity is good. Chris Berger is good at bringing people back to ground zero.
I don't, of course, I speak to people who live in South Russell about our village. 15, 20, 25 people from now and then, not now and then. And they seem to be very happy with the direction of the village. But that's only 20 to 25 that I spoke.
Yeah,
There's, there is a lot of value in strategic planning. I know that we're probably looking at the next year ahead and eventually transition to a 5-year view. But, despite the fact that it might be a popular opinion that residents are happy, I think that the village leadership should have a goal as to what direction they want to go, what major projects they want to tackle. We just can't, use the dartboard approach to say, yeah, I think we'll do this. It's good to have that framework, even though you depart from it. Every plan, in the military, you never outlast the first shot fired, but you have a lot of branches and sequels where you can still keep going in the general direction of achieving that end state that you want to define. But I think there's a lot of value in having to say, what do we want to accomplish as a village and where do we want to go? So, and I support having an outside source lead the process for us. It's not going to be accomplished in one meeting, but over time, I think it's good to say, these are the things we want to accomplish.
Makes it worthwhile, and an outside mediator as it were, leading the discussion.
as I said, I didn't want to go with what my neighbor suggested. I have to check with Mark, who's, I don't want to drag your wife into this, but another professor of Cleveland State. How about this, that there is a good, as we said, a very highly recommended man from Cleveland State. If it maybe be better, that maybe Chris and I talk to him, instead of getting you involved in this, since it's inside. This could just be somebody to sit down and talk to, see the cost. My thought, if we hire somebody, I would want to say maybe the second meeting in January is when we would start on the strategic plan. Let's finish this year, let's get our budget in. And then I guess tonight, I would like to see us get some goals and get the goals back to our employees. Say, hey, this is what we think, what do you think? That would be my thought. Other thoughts?
Since it seems like a few people know who this strategic plan or proposed guy is, is there a problem with sharing who the guy is and what his credentials are?
Biggest problem, I forgot his last name. I can find it.
I mean, what is his position? What are his credentials? What does he do?
I don't have all that, but I can get that to you. And I guess he would be the first person I would talk to. There's no guarantee that this is the person we want.
His first name's Ben Mayer, I know him somewhat, met him. He works at the Cleveland State Business Management Department. And he's also, last time I heard, commander in the Navy Reserve. He's primarily an HR specialist, and I guess there's some code, HR specialist code these days, and he goes over Toledo's these days. He goes from command to command as a reservist for his, weekend, 2 weeks a year. He does HR evaluations and things of that nature, but also he teaches classes on strategic planning for the state as well. He's out on the west side, that's where he lives, but I think he'd be a good choice.
There he is, Dennis,
So
this is what Mark said.
yeah, that's better.
He's,
Baran, B-A-R-A-N, is that
he's Baron. We had a couple emails back and forth. I don't even know if I have his credentials yet. But again, when I talked to him, it was, early June, he was then going off. He's Navy?
Mhm.
Okay. One strike against him. But anyhow, this is what he's done, he's very well known. So we can start with him. Chris, is that all right? You and I
Yeah,
sit
I
down.
can be available.
Okay. All right. No. All right. It is now 5:44 and we have an hour to knock off goals. Now, my thought was to go down through these goals and realize that they're rough and start looking at them, and just so you could see what your colleagues are thinking about. The building committee goals, what I came up with, and you mentioned it, and Chris and Jerry at the building committee. We don't have goals for finance. HR committee came from Danielle. So this is right down your alley.
Mhm.
You're right there.
We should do the strategic plan, we did this certified in the CPO class.
Good.
We could do it, if we need it.
Property committee, we need some goals. Public utilities, we came up with these last Friday. Safety, these are the couple I came up with, and streets, we need a couple goals. All right, let's chew up.
One question there before we start, define the playing field here. Is this, I noticed some people are talking about a 5-year plan. As I understood it initially, we were gonna look at a 1-year strategic plan. Are we now into a 5-year strategic plan or what?
I have no idea. I just want to get something down on paper, get the conversation.
I thought we did say 5, in my mind, we said 5.
I think it's a matter of record that it's 1, but
Okay, well, if we look at the next page, beyond the planning, what was the planning discussion from July 25th? The first question is, how are we defining essential services in 2023? To me, that indicates a 1-year plan.
Right.
Okay, now, if this goes out beyond 1 year, so be it. But I think the first question needs to be from every department is, what do you define as essential services? In terms of them laying out goals to meet those essential services.
Roads, police.
Well, you know what, if we could, let's kind of go down each committee, just to get a flavor. Because these, again, there's too much to bill in these. First one I came up with, users of the building department services, including pavilion rooms, will be handled mostly, if not all, transactions in business online. Basically, if it were come January 1, we could do everything through the computer. We're not, I guess Chris and Jerry, we're not to the point we're disappointed yet in the computer software company, but they moved off now till October. And I'm beginning to get concerned. We had hoped that we could, somebody could rent a pavilion from the comfort of their home. And now I don't think in January that's going to be possible. So that was just one I came up with.
Okay, so question.
Okay?
So implementation of the new computer software, is it your goal that it would be January 1?
Yes.
Okay, so would that have been a strategic goal for 2022? Because it would be implemented as of January 1, 2023. So the new strategic goal should be, the software is in place now. Are we utilizing it? Are we expanding upon it? Are we directing users to go to the online portal and use that? I mean, are all the features, I mean, that's the next step. Because the software hopefully is implemented by the end of 2022. I mean, it's online, now we gotta get people used to it and how to use it and how to train, you know.
So the training is the only push.
Well, how to train the public to use
No.
the portal, okay?
Is it
I
different?
mean, well, it's not difficult, but if you don't know that it exists, you'll continue to show up at the door for the building department as opposed to going online and doing it. And, you know, do we have all of the ancillary stuff together, the credit card readers, or credit card processors and all of that? I mean, to me, that's the strategic plan going forward. Implementation of the software is already in process.
And the last meeting we had, building department, Bruce informed us that her training will begin September 16th.
She said this morning,
Unless it changes.
she got pushed back to
Oh.
October sometime.
Really?
I guess, Chris, in my opinion, the software, she's still in the better spot. She's,
Okay, well, then we shouldn't say it's a January 1 implementation. We should have a realistic date of, you know, is it second quarter, is it third quarter, what's the implementation date for the software? And then go from there in terms of a strategic plan, in terms of making it useful to the community.
how about September 2023, just as
Well,
well.
is that realistic, or is that too far out in the future? I mean, I don't know the answer, I'm here to ask questions.
If you're talking about, you know, the public uses the software installed on the village website to reserve a pavilion. Reserve a pavilion on this date, this date, this date. That would be a great thing for them to do, so they don't come to the building department and do it.
Mhm.
Question, do we take credit card payments?
Not yet.
Not yet, but we will.
I mean, so if they're gonna do it online,
Mhm.
they make the reservation online, they can send a check, and enter, make a credit card payment, but that seems like something we would have to have in place. In terms of letting the public know, the newsletter is a good way to do it, and reverse email blast.
Mm,
You're not gonna tell everybody with the newsletter, but you're gonna tell some people, and sooner or later, the word filters out, hey, you can do this online.
Well, first we have to get the software in place, right?
Sure.
Hopefully by January, and then once that's in place, we have to get the credit card readers and whatever you need for that part of it to get that piece in place. So I guess the goal would be to have everything in place and everything function as we wish by the end of next year, but
That sounds
until that
reasonable.
software is in.
January 1st, 2023 for resident utilization of an online program to reserve the pavilion, to make, appointments to appear before ADR, Planning Commission, one of the others. And then we successfully advertise in the newsletter and email blast, so that sooner or later people figure it out. And I think most people would like to be able to do that online, and they
Okay.
can actually look at our website, and they're like, oh, well, I have to go in. Instead of having a link, it says, here.
Is this still going to be a cloud-based system? We know.
I would hope so.
Yeah,
Because
PCI.
when we designed the website, I created a page that's ready to go. It's not published online yet, but I have a page created already for the building department that's going to allow somebody to just click a link and just navigate over to the cloud-based system. So we're ready on our end. We don't need any further, updates on our website. So we're ready, but as long as it's still a cloud-based system, we're good on this end.
I can't even answer that, chief.
Let me just jump in. From a strategic planning point, this is way too much detail, okay? This is something that building committee should take back and come up with all of the detailed items and the checklist and all that good stuff. From our perspective, it's at the 30,000 foot level. It's, you tell us it's gonna be online and ready to go January 1, that's your goal, that's the strategic plan.
2023, right?
January 1 of 2023. Is that what you're saying? So 4 months from now.
24.
You're saying, okay, so you're saying 16 months from now.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if that's reasonable or not. That's for building committee to decide if they think that's a reasonable plan. If they can do it faster, obviously implement it faster.
I think we'll get a better feel of it after Ruth goes through some training.
Okay.
I
And
tell you,
get her feedback from her.
I'm hesitant to have any kind of realistic timeline when it comes to that software. I've been active in that committee for 9 months now, and in 9 meetings, training was delayed. So I'm skeptical of the company getting this done.
Okay, so it's hard to make a strategic plan if you don't know what they can do, but I think you gotta put a date out there and then adjust it as the information comes in.
So do they just need employees? What seems to be the?
That's been some of that communication.
Ruth, I think they needed a phone call to say, get your butt in here.
I think we'll have a better picture, a clearer picture after Ruth goes through some training.
Yeah, but that's putting the burden on Ruth and Danielle. You get here towards the end of the year, Ruth is gonna have it easier, Danielle's gonna have it worse. We gotta get,
Well,
I think we need to call and talk.
Okay, well, yeah, and just figure out, I mean, and if it's June 30th is the right date, then that's the right date. It is what it is, but come up with your plan, and then you guys can figure out all the details and tell us if you need help.
So you say January 1st, 2024,
Right.
and you completed June 30th of 2023, you guys look like geniuses.
Well, except that, is 2024 goals realistic for a 1 year 2023 plan? So,
How about December 31st, 2023? We'll go with that.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Can somebody read that while I do this?
When there are items needing involvement of the architecture review board, the Board of Zoning Appeals and the Planning Commission, each board will hold scheduled monthly meetings with all board positions filled by members or alternates.
We, architecture review, BCA is fine. Planning commission, we meet, we don't meet. Don't have people there, we sometimes have people there. It's basically up our game a little bit, that's what's going on. Just a better service, we got people who discuss the sign at the Red Barn, we started February, and it's still going on. Friday just gave me the latest. We got $3,800 in legal fees on signing on the Red Barn, just since February. I mean, stuff like that, delays and not getting things done, it's not good service to our residents and to using taxpayer money. I think we can do better. And I just grabbed this one because it bothers me, but there could be other building committee goals if you guys got some money.
Mayor, just as a history lesson, were there instances this year when there was potential business that you discussed that was delayed because you weren't available?
Yeah. Friday said ready for over a year of some code changes. That we need to get going. Any other things on the building committee goals? Anybody have anything? Somebody wants to add one? Go ahead.
You have something in the newsletter almost every time that there's vacancies, and we can use people, don't you?
Yes, and believe it or not, 7 people applied to be an alternate for the planning commission. We looked months at the Board of Zoning Appeals and we finally got one, and I don't know why, all of a sudden, everybody thought they wanted to be on the planning commission.
We saw in our nice new newsletter with all the graphics, that's part of it.
That's what jumped it out. After the meeting lasted a couple hours, I don't know how many of them are still interested. Okay, any other thing else for the building committee goals? If not, let's move on. We need a goal, I guess I like to see a couple goals for finance.
Okay, for finance, first of all, we define our essential services as exhibit fiscal responsibility and transparency and ethical behavior in village financial dealings and act in accordance with applicable guidelines of the Ohio Revised Code and state and county financial practice.
We pass that one down, so I'll just type it in.
That would be our essential services. And in terms of a goal, the one goal that we are proposing, which we have not had an opportunity to discuss among the committee members, because we meet this Friday, will be to develop a 5-year fiscal plan for the conduct of the village business.
So you have one goal.
We have defined the essential services,
Okay.
which so has been asked for, and how are we defining essential services? And we have the goal of a 5-year fiscal plan.
Wouldn't the essential services be like self-evident, what we're gonna do?
We're being asked to define essential services, so I have chosen to define them.
Okay.
How are we defining essential services in 2023? So it may seem redundant, but without that definition, of your way forward or what the desired end state is for your particular responsibility, you can't form subordinate goals. So, I think that's a valid question in our South Russell strategic planning discussion that we had before about how are we defining essential services.
Comments?
I don't disagree with the idea of a 5-year fiscal plan. My concern is that it's reliant upon every department to create the plan for that department and then it to be compiled
Well,
by.
and I don't disagree with you, Chris, and that's where, I throw that out there without the discussion of the committee, but perhaps a better way to capture it would be the framework of a 5-year plan. Because to your point, we may not have, there are some knowns, that, like replacement of equipment, we know those things, we may take a look at the physical plant, we know that we've got, a structure for salt that needs to be replaced. So there are some knowns, but there's gonna be some unknowns.
Yeah.
The framework.
I like the idea of the framework, okay? That makes more sense to me, and providing that framework to the departments so that they can fill in the numbers, we can compile them and decide if it's a realistic goal. Okay.
Anybody want wordsmith these goals? Is everybody happy?
I'm happy as long as I'm not on the finance committee.
All right, 6 o'clock, and we are now 10 minutes ahead of schedule. HR committee.
Thank you, Mr. Berger, for doing this. Want me to read?
Yeah, because I can't find my notes.
The employee handbook will be updated by engaging HR professionals. Job descriptions will be updated by engaging HR professionals. And a salary tier will be established and data will be provided by HR professionals.
In addition to that, we talked about the idea of establishing a review period so that every 2 years, every 3 years, every 5 years, whatever that review period is, automatically we say, okay, this is the year that we're going to review salary structure, and we're going to go out and we're going to look at all the surrounding communities, and we're going to get, with the help of outside consultancy, to put together the data and make sure that we're continuing to be competitive in the job place, but reasonable, you know? And so to be fiscally responsible. And so, but I think we need to establish a regular period review. And we can say the same thing for the employee handbook, that it needs to be reviewed periodically to make sure that it's up to date and that all the documentation is consistent. We also suggested that the employee handbook would be a live document put on our website. You know, maybe with accessibility to all the employees at least, but that it could be an available document for them. So I'm giving you a little depth as to what we're talking about in terms of our goals.
You want to throw that into the first goal? Employee handbook will be updated by the
Well,
HR professionals
yeah,
and will be,
reviewed. And I suggested in my notes from HR that it would be a triennial every 3 years. Maybe that's too often, maybe it's not often enough, I don't know. Committee has to come up with a plan.
we don't need to say it's gonna be online. Are we going to, do anything, did I hear presenting it to them on a regular basis?
Presenting it to employees?
Employees on a
Well,
regular
if it's online, it's available to be reviewed. I mean, obviously, any significant changes that needs to be presented department by department, but, you know, one of the challenges is, hey, employee has an issue. Did you look in your employee handbook? Oh, I can't find it, I don't know where I put it, okay, it's online, go online, it's all there for you. Okay, resolve some of those issues that way.
Resolve them fast. Exactly.
Hopefully.
All right, anything else on those 3 HR committee goals for 2023? Okay, you sent me some property goals, I didn't get them up.
Okay, how are you?
I'm ready.
Property goals, work collaboratively with the service department to enhance the maintenance and beauty of all properties owned by the village, and continue to work and communicate with park committee to ensure a delicate balance between human usage and nature at our Bell Road and East Washington Street Park.
I'll wait for that. I'll let you explain.
Now, concerning working collaboratively with service department, not micromanaging. We have excellent people in service department. But to work closely with them, perhaps a few more meetings, going on site,
Which we didn't
the
do.
different properties that we have more often, just to stay in tune with what's going on.
So often you attend the properties meeting.
How long by? Since one,
And how about parks?
3,
I imagine Jerry Tim's called in when there's particular issues for parks or properties.
I invite him to come to our
You
parks.
show most of the time, yeah. He's very good about it.
Oh,
It
yes.
seems like the smart thing to do, because your guys can be the ones who pretty much do the benches, the trees,
Right.
whatever we're doing.
Right, and we stay in communication. Now, the Parks Committee is really into this delicate balance between human usage and nature. Okay, so that's something that we're gonna continue to work on. We have debates at times about we should promote more human usage of the park in there or something. He said, no, I think we should,
Birds and flowers.
yes, exactly. So, we, the word, a good word for that, we negotiate
Collaborate.
and collaborate, yes.
So one thing that I'm just thinking about, and I don't know if it fits under property, but the stuff that, I shouldn't say stuff, the booklets and the important history things we had from the 75th in 1998 were given back to me. And I have them in my living room. And again, those are really, these are village documents. The village paid for the booklets, they did all of that. So I think we lack the space maybe to put things, but we're gonna have it all over again next summer. So I guess I need to talk with Danielle and see what's downstairs. Could we keep things safely in the bins?
We could keep them safely. We have things cleaned out, over the years, depending what it is, we have to see. I do know the mayor asked me about the stained glass window. He used to be here, so if you got the email, Leslie did some research and found out. So I don't know if we can locate that. But there was a time where, 2005 was it, that they were going to build a cabinet here to put all those historical things in the back of the room, and that was never done. So I don't know if that's something else we're talking about. Because there's a stained glass window from when this was a church, they used that, and that is somewhere if we can get it.
Where's the window?
We don't know.
Well, we do know.
It's in the minutes from wherever, when we were talking about doing that cabinet, they didn't come to a conclusion at that meeting, so it's documented in the minutes who took the window home that night.
I was a former councilman, so.
But he became ill immediately after.
Did the FBI, invade his home, hit the window?
No, but I did send a text and an email to the person that had not had a response.
So
We don't know if
really
the
hope
person's
it's
out there or
going
not, they're still alive.
But we should get those documents, because they are the property of the village, so whatever. you
So I have them, and it's with most of them are deceased people now. And we questioned them about their growing up, and so they're not beautiful, but they're 100 years from now. Some idiot of history like me is gonna read them and go, wow, this is good stuff.
Could they be scanned?
Oh, sure.
I'm sure they
I
could.
mean, unless the originals are of a certain value, if they can be scanned, they can be added to.
Those could go online, they're fun to read, yeah. Those lamps, those oil lamps sat in our basement for years when I think when they partitioned, that wall was known, so it used to go wide open to the back. So every time there was a remodel, stuff changed. And so when the basement became offices and we police had to move over there, I think stuff just goes away. I don't think it's mean or stealing or anything, stuff is moving.
And your discussion concerning hospital cabinet, the idea, the intermediate school in town really did a great job. They blended the old with the new. And they have that. They have remnants of the very first school.
Thank your mom for that.
Yes.
I'll take it.
Okay. And it's interesting, very interesting. And it is a great idea to do that.
Do you want to be on the committee? You have to be on the alumni committee. He's giving me the eyeball over there. So at any rate, back to this. I don't know what I'm gonna come up with for a questionnaire because I'm in the old people category. And I don't know who else to ask. So we'll have things, but we're gonna have pictures, we're gonna color copy pictures, and we're gonna have to have something that we take to the fall festival. Which I'll be doing that next week.
I'd suggest Ted Cruz. You gotta cross the street.
He's great, but he grew up here. What I wanted was the people, and he knows his, maybe about 40-year history of being here, yeah. But it's like sad to me, the old, like, bus is the oldest thing. There's stuff, and they're in rubber bait bins right now, and they need to come back. It's village property.
What happened to the historical stuff that Daryl had?
I haven't been to that.
Going back to the property, I'm just asking the question from a bigger picture standpoint. If property has a strategic plan, what's the footprint of the campus to look like?
That's a great
Is
question.
there a plan for, is it a goal of the property committee to seek to acquire additional property? Leave the question at that. If the salt dome is going to be moved, is it a question for the property committee as to where the salt dome gets moved, because it's on campus property? And is that the right place for it to be moved? Is there another use for it, et cetera, et cetera? Those type of strategic planning questions, I think need to be answered every year.
Thank you, Chris. Let me run with that.
Okay.
Okay. Tim has made it quite clear that he needs more room, more storage. Okay. Our fire marshal said that what we use now isn't the best area for such usage. Someday, this village is going to build a new facility.
Wesley.
Someday, okay? Now, someday it's gonna cost a heck of a lot more, 15 years down the road, 20 years down the road, than it would, say, 5 years down the road. So that's something for us to ponder about. Well, it's not to build a Shangri-La, but to perhaps the construction of a new hall / police department / service department. Because you know darn well, 15 or 20 years from now, it's gonna cost a heck of a lot more.
So you're thinking of like what Banger Chips, but they're all together there? They did their whole building plus they have.
Put it all together.
It's my understanding that at one point there was a plan, like they had talked about doing that, building a complex. It was to be $1 million to combine all, and it was too much for them. Well, now I think.
Well, now you really, yeah, right, exactly.
But in that vein, I would suggest if we're gonna move the salt dome somewhere, let's not move the salt dome where it would make the most sense to build the campus 5 years from now. If that truly is a goal, then let's try to look out a little bit further and make sure that doesn't happen. So that's why I'm suggesting a strategic plan for the footprint of the campus and what it's gonna look like next year or in 5 years.
Will they still be using salt? Do they use different things like liquid stuff?
We don't have the facilities to use liquid. You need more storage, different equipment. It'd be very expensive for us to pick up. They do with vinyl salt.
I didn't know.
We don't have a problem with salt.
Best roads.
Let's go back to what you said about the strategic plan. I have developed a master plan with possible acquisition of property, expansion, reconfiguring of the present property. You said it better. I didn't get it.
And for the footprint of the campus, what will the footprint look like? Simply.
I just think these things morph over time. We were ecstatic in what, 1990 or 90 something, when we bought the house. Just to get the police through there, they're down in the subterranean, no windows, just to be above ground. And it gave you lots of room.
Like our neighbors to the south did, they took their facility, would take the church, just throw an idea out there, move it to the corner lot, make it a museum, and start here.
Okay, and if we can make it look like it did in 1848, no, I'm just teasing.
I would,
You need a stained glass window.
Stay West Window.
think less than- I'd be concerned about the corner, because right now in Russell, it's gonna rise up and move their town hall back, because it's almost a
So
traffic.
it's on the road,
It is.
but do they have room to move it back?
They can stick it back in the corner of the parking lot.
The police stations.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's changed in the last 30-40 years, everybody's changed.
I mean, it takes a lot more than just us novices to sit down and look at, you know, this plan. And I'm sure there are outside consultants that can sit with us and talk about the future of what the footprint looks like, and how, you know, what the expectation is. Yeah, well, and so, but that's what part of our goal is to say, okay, what's it gonna look like 5 years from now, and how do we figure out what makes sense? So, just offer that up.
Jerry, we have work to do.
anything else on the property committee? All right. Public utilities,
5 years village projects will control stormwater resulting from 100-year storms without detrimental impact to the residents from flooding.
You know, lots being done with that already.
It is, but we are not convinced we've arrived at a final solution to the village stormwater problems. It will take some time to evaluate what we're doing now, how effective it is, and in particular, once those culverts are replaced on Chillicothe, 4 culverts, 2 south, 2 north, I recall them, once they're upsized from what they are now, then after a year or so, we'll have some idea of how effective our measures have been to date. Ideally, it fixes the problem north and south of Bell Road. I don't know that it does, and I don't think we will know until we get a 100-year storm with these things in place and see how the systems handle the water coming from east to west. So the 5-year part of this is in part evaluation of what we're doing now, but we talked briefly about other steps we might want to take depending on how these 2 systems work and whether or not we need to go further. And our second goal is we want to reduce the amount of energy, electricity, gas used by village facilities. And Danielle sent out her spreadsheet of the utility costs for the village. Frankly, Danielle, I've forgotten how expensive it was, electric and gas, particularly service department gas usage in the winter. I mean, every time you guys open the doors, you know, that's, you know, money going right out into the atmosphere, but that's part of what you're doing. And it occurred to us that maybe if we use solar panels on various buildings,
We've got to put solar panels on the 1848 building. We're gas out right now.
well, I would not put them on Village Hall, but the service department building, the police department building, there are other possibilities. The question is, what does it cost, what's the payback, and how often do you have to replace them, what's the maintenance requirements, can we do it in-house? There's a lot of things underneath that goal that have to be addressed, but, for example, if we had enough solar panels to power the village, lights, computers, etc., and charge any electric vehicles the police department might buy, we're saving money by not going to the Bell station or other gas stations, and we're saving money by reducing the electrical consumption from CEI, wherever it is these days. And we'd also briefly mention maybe it's time for a gas well dedicated to the village. Because we're spending, what, $600-700 a month, Daniel, on natural gas?
It's a lot of often.
Yeah, and it's higher in the winter because we're heating the buildings and whatnot. However, a gas well dedicated to the village for village use would have to be very carefully done because everybody east 306 is on a well. The last thing we want to do is drill a well, gas well, and disturb the aquifer and create an enormous problem for everybody who's got a well. So that's some of the things the committee is talking about, and we'll go forward with that in the next year. Well, we did talk about a windmill, actually. It was pointed out that Kenston Schools, the high school complex place, get about 70% of their energy.
Really,
So I hear from
from the,
the big turbines and from their solar farm.
Mr. Berger will throw in on the side about football.
Yeah. I'll tell you about somebody else's time. Go ahead, Dylan.
So the list of public utilities came up in terms of a 1-year strategic plan and 5 years.
Friday, then, I did call Bob Lee, superintendent, Kenston, who put up the wind turbine, put in the gas, put in the solar panels. Asked him to give me some numbers, he's gonna get those together. He had to contact Bill Frost, who did all the work at Kenston. He's now the yellow light solar. Put in an email to him, so we can at least have somebody to talk to.
they threw my items, put those in, and now it's no big deal, you know.
The people that were here Tuesday night for the architecture committee, they're installing solar panels on their home. And she said, she did basically said, I don't know really what to tell you besides contact the guy who sold it to us, who told us, you know, the financials. It's funny that she's a Kenston school teacher. So anyhow, we're starting to look into it.
And at some point down the road, public utilities and streets may get together and ask the street commissioner to investigate the potential of putting up solar panels to the point of getting quotes. And then that gives us some basis to go forward with both the energy reduction and what's it gonna cost? What would it cost? And is it worth it? Because it's the 30-year lifespan for the panels, and the payback period is like 60 years. Well, you know, that's not worthwhile.
Tim, do you know anything about gas wells?
It'll be a learning experience for all of us.
We have some in the village, right?
But we have the gas easement that runs east of Pop Off straight across Music Street. And as a child, we ran through those before they were connected, and everybody was so nice, what we did anyways.
Is there a gas hole behind Guineas? Classics back there?
There's one where the new construction is.
Ooh, no, you're right.
The house that
The
we
new
burned.
construction.
I think that on the way back to the new house, there's a gas well there.
Yeah, there used to be the tanks up on Bell Road, that gathered the oil, and they would come and pump those tanks out periodically.
B.E. Smith complained because they cut the gas line during the construction. So there's at least one gas well.
This was just recently with construction of the new house.
Construction of the new house somehow, B.E. Smith's area, had, it's, you know, you can see it's right by the road. Somehow that line got cut. And so he's complaining about, that's, in other words, at least there was a gas well there. And you say, I don't know if there's any other gas wells.
That gas line, quite a, was big behind. That was behind that on gas house.
Ideal to have one down here, sitting right there.
And the recollection is you need 20 contiguous acres in order to do that. And I don't recall what the village owned property amounts to, but it's probably close. It's not
Contiguous.
more. Contiguous, yeah.
Hmm.
That's so property owners can band together and do it. You didn't have to own 20 acres outright of yourself, although that's probably preferred. But it's an idea. But no impact on the environment would be our number one concern.
Okay, we're at 6:26 and we got 2 committees left. Safety Committee.
Safety Committee. We define our essential services as providing a safe community for all South Russell Village citizens in which to live and work, and that our police force remains a professional, community-oriented organization. We have 2 sub-goals. The village will recognize our safety forces with yearly participation in the Honor Our First Responders program, And we're going to be taking a look at the flock camera program and evaluate and determine continuation or termination in the coming year. So, we are looking at potentially plussing up 2 flock cameras during this particular fiscal year.
I asked for 2 safety, so I recommend 3.
Right, Dennis, can you pass that down to the competitive?
Sure.
Comments, people?
Equipment, vehicles, you have 1 hybrid, 2,
We have 2 hybrids and 2 on the way.
2 more hybrids on the way.
Correct.
So
Unknown delivery.
you're happy with them?
Oh, yeah, they've been fantastic. So when I originally spec'd out the hybrids, the cost of the hybrid engine is about $5,000 more than the gasoline engine. And back when gas prices were a little lower, I projected at about 18 months, we would make our money back, and then beyond that, we'd be saving. With the increase in fuel costs, we're now down to about 13 months of kind of making our money back on the original purchases. So we have 2 on order. They're expecting to be here anytime now. It's just delays because of the chip shortage. So we may get delivery of them by the end of the year. We may have to carry over our funds to, if we have to expect them in January. So we're hopeful they come in soon.
In conjunction with the public utilities look at reducing our carbon footprint, is there such a thing as an EV police vehicle?
There's one was just introduced and will be available in 2024. So it'll be an all-electric Chevy Blazer, very comparable to what we have now. It looks, smaller, all-wheel drive SUV, but it's an all-electric police interceptor.
So by interceptor, you mean high speed?
Pursuit rated, yeah, pursuit rated. It's, believe it or not, I think it was like 550 horsepower
Oh my gosh.
on this electric vehicle. Yeah,
All-wheel drive?
all-wheel drive and a 300-mile range. So for us, we drive, we have shifts, so we do a 12-hour shift, so the car will run for 12 and then be parked for 12. That's how it operates now. So that would be time for it to recharge at the station if you go that route.
So did you had to get special chargers for the hybrids?
Hybrids are gasoline and electric, so when the battery is operating the vehicle, you're on battery. So when you put more demand on the vehicle, the gasoline engine turns on to charge the battery. So it's, the fuel savings has been absolutely, miles per gallon is, much better than the gasoline
And
engine.
these
So
were only 5 grand more?
5,000 more, the hybrid engine.
But if you go to all electric, then do we have to do something to charge them?
The police station,
I mean, just it's a regular.
yeah, we would need 220 ones.
Yeah.
So 220 would be fast charging.
But again, because Mark and I talked about this in public utilities, if we put solar panels up and used it to create a charging station that could then be used to charge the cars,
Yes,
we would significantly reduce our footprint
absolutely.
from carbon base. So something, hey, I don't know, but it's worth investigating.
I'm very interested in knowing that. It looks like again, a very well, anticipated vehicle. Everybody's kind of looking at this thing as the next big move in police vehicles.
550 horse?
Put a snowplow
Maybe off by a couple horsepower, but yeah, it's well over 500 horsepower.
And the response is immediate too,
Oh, yeah.
because it's electric drive. Okay.
So, yeah, they're really moving in the right direction. And up to date, we've had little minor, glitches with cars, ever since, the beginning of the time here. But the hybrids, there's nothing really that you have to, change as far as your driving. Everything's automatic and does it in the background. So they've been we've been a very successful with the hybrids so far. So
Is there a cost? That number?
to the vehicle, yeah.
Cars are basically, what, 30,000, the car.
I think we were at 35,000 for those cars.
And
And
then
the equipment. So we usually, we're around 48 to 50,000 to equip them and everything.
I don't think there's a need for us to look into getting a charging station from, NOACA's been talking about charging stations, Novak's talking about charging stations.
I'm sure.
Until he moves to an all-electric.
Yeah.
We don't have to worry about it, but we can still deal with the solar panel issue and see about, collecting the power and how we can use it and that kind of stuff.
And I think as far as the charging station is concerned, Dave Ostergaard, with his electrical background, would be the guy to ask, how is the best to do this? I know you can plug into 120 volt.
Yes, you can. It's a slower charge
And
rate.
usually they want you at 220 or 440, depending on how fast you want to
You can unplug
charge.
the dryer in the garage and put the car up.
We have multiple 220 lines in the service ground. We can move our welder to 3 different places just to get the welder to the weld job if it's too big to move. So when we updated our own electric in-house, we also added those lines years ago.
And we have the capability of adding to the police station now, so it just depends on if we go with that solar panel program. And on top of that, let's say the power goes out for a week, we've got the generator too as a backup, so we shouldn't have any problems recharging an all-electric fleet.
Do we have generators in all buildings?
There's 2 generators to cover all the buildings.
If you have solar panels, presumably, if the grid goes down, you can still do what you need.
Yep.
As long as the storage is okay and sunshine.
Yeah.
Included.
No matter.
That's all I have for, public utilities. This is more than-
No, we were in safety, so this is good.
I do want to, I don't know if all of you were aware that when we started the flock program, we were trying to determine whether or not to put them on First Energy poles. We elected to go on the solar panels and self-contained systems. A lot of departments prior to us getting cameras put on the First Energy poles without their permission. Today, First Energy came down and is beginning to rip down 100 cameras in Cleveland, and they're all over Northeast Ohio, taking all of the flock cameras down.
Oh, what a waste of
So we made a good move, we did the right thing.
money. You're a smart guy.
I didn't want to pay the rent on First Energy poles either.
Well, they were put in without permission and they were tied into the electric grid
I
without
think
permission.
that was the problem.
Technically stealing his power.
Yeah.
Okay, last but not least, it's 6:35. We have 15 minutes ahead of schedule. Leave it to streets committee.
Sure, what the goals, we're gonna come up with, actually, it's the salt bill in 2023, assessing, potentially relocating / rebuilding. And the second goal we came up with was, actually for 2024, was the road work repaving Bellwood East. That's what we got.
You could add a third if you wanted to. So every year the engineer does a PCI, which is, I don't know what the abbreviation is, some kind of index, but it measures how much life is left in every road, and it's on 0 to 100. A lot of our roads the last few years have been in the 60s. I think maybe as a goal, we could shoot for every road in the village is at a PCI of 75 or better.
We're getting there.
Yeah. But that's because we've had massive road programs the last 2 years. And then Bellwood East, and then what we do next year.
TCI 75.
Yeah, or better.
Pavement condition index.
What is it, Daniel?
Pavement condition index.
Okay. Anything else you want to talk about strategic planning?
Well, I just wanted to make comment because of the last strategic planning meeting, there was a lot of talk about getting news out to the residents and whatever. So, Leslie has, updated the Facebook and she's trying to get more stuff on there. at the fall festival, we're setting up a table, we have volunteers to help us listen to making a sign at the library, to alert people of the e-blast, and we have people that are trying to sign up people as they sit there, get people signed up with the e-blast, so we're trying to get the word out there and give people different options to try to reach them, so hopefully, we help maybe the sign at the fall festival, if they see it, maybe we can get more people.
That, the sign across the road is a good thing.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Well, it won't be across the road, but I figured I'm pavilion, something right there when they're walking in, so they'll see it, and then we're gonna have volunteers at the table trying to get them signed up for something.
Are you co-locating this with the hot dogs and the food there?
Yeah, if they're right there by the food, they're gonna catch their attention, so.
It can't hurt. I mean, you've tried to beat your head, it's worked hard at this.
For what
Um,
it's worth, everything, any committee, any board I'm on, they got the same problem. Getting people to do read minutes, you know,
I'm
agendas.
trying everything, this time there's no goal on goal, but all festival, so I thought about for years, but now with Leslie's help, we're able to, hopefully get that on.
We will continue our efforts to bring the horse to water.
Yes.
Promise.
The village considered small, but, Leslie, I've seen, excuse me, Facebook more often. Facebook, you can, what they call boost posts. It's a crazy algorithm. You can follow a company and never see their posts, because Meta, who owns Facebook, wants you to pay them money to make fun of your audience more. So by a couple bucks, you can set your parameters geographically here in South Russell. You can boost it for $5 for a couple of days. It gets more people who may not even follow you, and they're also your followers. More than happy to help you.
We have an IT committee, and we can this to round
Here is usually the last small
I
question.
think we want to put it out there, so whatever help we can know.
Yeah, sure. We'll just spend a few bucks on this.
Okay, so I've got three things so far that I guess, I'm gonna call the software company for the building department. Chris and I are gonna meet with Ben Moran, to talk to him about a possible January 2023 service and strategic planning. And I'll call Patty Mills. Anything else before we adjourn? Got a motion to adjourn at 6:40.
Move.
Moved by Kavanaugh, seconded by Bell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The strategic planning committee is adjourned. Welcome, everyone. Today is Monday, September 12th, 7 p.m. This is the South Russell Village Normal Council meeting. This is also Honor Our First Responders Week, put on by the Chamber of Commerce to honor our police department and the Chagrin Valley Fire Department. Yesterday was the 25th anniversary of 9/11. Almost 3,000 people were killed in Virginia, Pennsylvania, and New York. Lingering effects are still being felt today by many of the health workers and the first responders. Please stand now. We have a moment of silence for the people that lost their lives in 9/11. Thank you. We'll begin now with the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. For those of you who will be using this microphone, obviously it doesn't amplify, but it's for the people who are watching on YouTube so that they can hear you. Fiscal officer will take the roll.
Kavanaugh, here, Tulowitzki.
Here.
Porter.
Here.
Bell.
Here.
Ritter.
Here.
Campbell.
Here. We have minutes. Special council meeting. Minutes of the regular council meeting on Monday, August 8th. Any changes or corrections in the minutes? Hearing none, we have a motion to approve. So moved by Hanson, seconded by Kavanaugh. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes passed. We have meetings, a public hearing on zoning code amendments that occurred this Monday, August the 8th, that occurred at 6:30 p.m. Any changes or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve these public hearing on the zoning code amendments minutes?
So moved.
So moved by Berger, seconded by
Kavanaugh.
Kavanaugh. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. We are the visitors. Visitors,
He did that, he did it backwards. Yeah.
okay, visitors, here's how we do things. Anybody would like to speak, we ask you to please stand, give us your name and address. You get 5 minutes to speak. After 3 minutes have gone by, I'll stick up 2 fingers to let you know that your 2 minutes are left. When the 5 minutes in, we will thank you for speaking, and then we will, we could possibly answer. We may just say it's going to be referred to a committee, or it may go someplace else. But basically, you will get a response between now and 2 weeks from now when we have our next council meeting. On the agenda, we have signed in for us is Patrick Colson. Patrick, please take the microphone so the people Zooming can hear you. And the floor is yours. You start with your name and address, and I'll start the clock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Patrick Holtz. I live at 31 Thornton Drive in Lake Louise, and heard from others in Mason and Holtz, and also our friend Mark, where we purchased our 2 Ghost biscuit and Snickers a little more than a month ago. We've been absolute joy and a gift, and tonight I guess we're going to have the Majesty of Goat Law for the council. Quick review. Within our Lake Louise Homeowners Association, which was founded in 1956, having a goat is not prohibited under the Lake Louise HOA. The one item in terms of animals that are prohibited by Lake Louise is pigs. It makes some sense as you're a farm that was converted into a lake community. It makes some basic sense not to have pigs. The other second thing that we're not supposed to have in Lake Louise is also distilled spirits, and we're not going to be discussing that this evening. I'm not sure the intent there, but that's the other prohibited item within our Lake Louise HOA. That was in 1956. Fast forward to 1968, South Russell Village created its ordinance for prohibited animals. which also makes sense. Between that time gap of 12 years, a lot of change in South Russell. South Russell was changing from a rural community. You guys did your strategic plan here before this meeting. They did strategic planning as well. They were working to move from a rural community to semi-rural and residential. And in 1968, there's lots of challenges that South Russell was having that was at cross purposes with that question. For one, you had the flight that was from Cuyahoga County beginning in the late 60s. A lot of folks look at 1969 Fort Run fire. But most folks who are historians in Northwest Ohio look at 1966 as important. That's when the Hough riots occurred in Cuyahoga County, and people for the first time really thought to themselves to move out of Cuyahoga County and move to eastern Cuyahoga and to Jefferson County. This downward pressure increased the population here in South Russell, and our forefathers had to think themselves what type of planning did they have in place to enforce that, to keep that rural, semi-rural community. Meanwhile, culturally, in 1968, we only had 3 networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC. On CBS at 7:30 to reinforce this idea was Green Acres. The idea of a highfalutin metropolitan family coming to the country and having a farm. And that makes sense then in 1968 and why we have an ordinance that prohibits most farm actions. 2014, South Russell had good sense to amend that ordinance. It took a lot of time, I know, to include pigs or mini pigs into the ordinance. We are going to suggest to this evening, if we can, work toward this from a grassroots perspective to amend that ordinance to include goats.
2 minutes left.
And in the short term, consider a pilot program where Biscuit and Snickers can go back to our home under very tight regulations. First, the goats come in at night. That they're only released during certain periods of time during the day. It also has the support of our neighbors here in Lake Louise. This is not something we would take seriously about feedback from our neighbors. The folks on my street support it. Every neighbor is adjacent to us support us on it. We received 27 residents in Lake Louise who support the idea of a pilot program for it to come back home. And then also the larger question of the amended ordinance also takes on that has 27 folks on. That's just going to take time. One thing that came out of the short time the goats were with us, the rationale what we got for ourselves was actually for our family as a pet, but also that goats really do help cognitive learning. When children struggle with communicating, it forces you to kind of come out. Goats don't baa on need, it's more on socialization. And that has been a huge help cognitively for our kids. But one thing I was really surprised about, last point, is not so much the benefit for our family, but our community. Why would we put this into the ordinance here or have this footnote in the year 2022? And it's this idea that we find things that help bring us into community, that bring us out of isolation after a pandemic. And God love you. This goat for the 72 hours that was in Lake Louise on Garden Park Drive, from grandparents to young parents, really brought our community out. So I just want to yield the balance of the remaining of my time here to my daughters, Mason and Quinn. Mason, did you have something you wanted to offer real quick?
Hold on, they both can
Well, then,
speak for 5 minutes if they would like.
well, Mayor, I'll yield the balance of my time.
Your time is about 4 seconds.
Well, then, I'll yield that 4 seconds.
Okay, use the microphone, give us your name and address, and we'll start over.
Hello, I'm Mason Holtz, and I live on Garden Park Drive, and that's my dad, from Patrick. Our goats are crossbreed between a Machi goat and a pygmy goat. Pygmy goats are extremely small, which means our goats will not get that big. A fully grown pygmy goat is about the size of an English ladder goat, so they are small on the smaller range of goats. Our goats act like dogs and play like dogs. They will climb in your lap and snuggle with you like a dog will. Quite frankly, our goats are dogs. Our goats are extremely quiet for being goats. I mean, they will snuggle with you and love you. And if you would like to meet our goats, you are goats. You're welcome to.
Hey, take your time.
My name is Leonard, and I live in Garden Park Drive. and Seabass is kind, and Snickers is playful, and Biscuit is a smile, and Biscuit love Alpha. And they're kind.
Anybody else here to speak about the goats?
Hello, my name is Marcus Miller, from Feels Like Home Farm in Kirtland. You may have heard of us, we do all the goat yoga in the area. We're also a very active participant in the Geauga Fair under the Pygmy Connection of 4-H. I have 3 daughters, about the same size, and we got into, once we purchased the 8 acres, to bring 4-H to the world to teach some of our kids the business principles of animals. These young ladies picked out 2 wonderful goats, and a visual kind of says it all in reference to the type of goat we're talking about. This is a La Mancha pygmy. A La Mancha pygmy is a smaller than a pygmy goat. Technically has cropped ears, runs the weight of about 35 pounds full grown. These 2 young ladies have got an excellent setup with their parents. The reason why is everything's self-contained. Not only do they have it in a nice quiet area within the house, goats don't make noise. They make a little bit but that's about it. So reference to the decimal numbers, if you're concerned about noise abatement, your dogs will be so much louder than 1 or 2 goats. Number 2, they're actually, well, what do you do with the feces? Is there any danger to the community per se? There's actually more dangers of a subdivision to the goats than it is goats causing harm to you all. Azaleas and rhododendrons, 3 leaves will just, it's cyanide to it. So if they have a nice fenced structure, any feces product they're gonna put into their gardens, they have excellence. If you want some good vegetables and fruits, please go to them. Most important, I'm inviting you between now and your decision. Feels Like Home Farm is about 15 minutes away. Come take a look at what 60 to 70 goats look like right there on Sperry Road. I'm gonna give you my telephone number. That's 216-402-3590. You're more than welcome to come out, you and your family, to see what we do on our farm when we have 50 to 60 people. But most importantly, it is a Zen mentality. We have a lot of military PTSD. I'm retired military, U.S. Army captain, aviator, retired. We have a lot of people that come to my farm just to zen out, just to hang out with those goats and the alpaca and a few other little critters that we have. And most importantly, these young ladies have taken this on a strategic action. This is the beginning of 4-H today. It's actually being able to communicate in singularity voice with a great community about requesting a change. We all like to say no first on change, and rightfully so. Let's pause. But if you really see what these goats are going to do to the community, for this loving family, and more importantly to you all just got your first little exposure to something that I was a critic to until about 8 years ago when I bought that farm. My wife says, how about some goats? We started with 3, we built up to 60, but when we have these babies, we get up to about 150. All those baby goats go to the 4-H projects, like kids like this. They learn business opportunities, responsibility. They actually learn the definition of chores, not made up chores, but responsibility chores. If anything humanly possible for the 21st century, where this becomes the enemy of TikTok, right? This is grassroots. And I fully support in reference to their efforts to have you all given up. But please, come out to my farm. Take a look at how we started off with 3, and we kind of built up this little bitty enterprise on lifelines. And it brings joy from people from this side all the way up to those old timers like myself and a little bit older. So if you got any questions in reference to goats, you got nothing to worry about the goat. More about the fear of the reason of saving them. That's all I got. So I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, this issue came up a couple of weeks ago with the building committee. It was involved in change in our zoning, so that's where this will head. But before we end this discussion tonight, comments, questions from members of council.
I had a question. I think that you referred Ms. Folks to therapeutic.
Yes.
And so I didn't know why not just mini goats, why is it therapeutic mini goats?
Just they provide therapy, there's not, maybe I don't understand your question.
Well, you think, I went right to like therapy dogs, where they
Right.
get on planes with people.
Sure,
So I'm
So-
not familiar with therapy dogs.
sure, so, I mean, you can take a step back, you can do that. And Carlin has explored that, still it's so prohibited now. And so that doesn't take away from this conversation, that we're having. I think, you can get them, just like with a support animal, you can get them verified as support animals. But, I want to have this conversation with you all, which is that it's still a prohibited animal, and we have to come to you and talk to you about, the interests of parents. I could just, as a father, no reason why I did this. But the thought of this was, if you have children that need help cognitively in terms of communicating, goats are extraordinary on this. They just force folks to come out. And as a dad, we want to do that. I mean, that's kind of the underpinning values of our community is this family and its parents will do just about anything for our kids. And regardless of if it requires an ordinance change, if there was an ordinance that said if it helped me jumping on one leg to provide some therapeutic benefit for my children, I would do it. But so I think those are two different things. We'll explore that, but still, it's still a prohibited animal. And so you still have to put your magic fairy dust over it saying it's okay. And I think Mark can speak to it better than I can. My exposure was limited. It was 72 hours and then our time on the farm with the goats. And I have to tell you, it brings your blood pressure down. There's yoga. That's how we kind of introduced it initially. But it's a little tricky. And it's also different. I mean, let's be honest, it is a little different. And I think when you look at the history of the ordinance, though, that the rationale was really animal husbandry and farming, and we have to just tell you, that the purpose of this purchase is not to have a farm, garden park, it was with the intention of really helping our children. So,
Other questions from council?
Yeah, question, this is either for Mark or Pat, this concept is foreign to me. I understand in the 2014 revision to the ordinances, and that it was largely for a indoor pygmy pig, Are these animals primarily interior,
Yeah.
exterior? And are there gonna be any outbuildings that are required to support them in the winter or what?
So we've learned a lot, and if this would be, you're thinking of ways how you can really minimize the idea of folks buying goats. Like that. There's no running of the pigs here in Southwest, so I think there won't be running of the goats for a couple of reasons. Number two, one, you really do need to have two goats to make sure that you bring the any type of noise issues down. They're social animals, they want to talk to each other. We brought our goats inside, sleep at night, and then outside during the daytime. I would imagine during the day they'll be outside, and then the nighttime they'll be inside. I have to be honest with you, I think them being inside during the night is probably different. I think most folks would actually let them stay outside. We made the choice to bring them in. I think that'd be another way of really reining this in terms of folks, get it proliferating. But I'll be honest, this is where I defer to the committee. We would want to do this or have a traditional kind of pilot goat study with the committee that come out and let's check this out and let's figure out the rules that we want to apply to it. In the case of the pig, it took quite a bit of time to figure that out. And I think that if we had the goat there on the property, we can figure it out a little quicker. But we have a real open mind and open heart on it. We've also told our neighbors, tell us what you think. If you think there's anything that we should add to this, tell us. So it's really open-ended. We only basing this on 72 hours of having goats.
So right now, I understand no opposition from any of the neighbors.
No, excuse me. Oh, yes, there is opposition. There were members of the community that did oppose this. I can't quantify that. All I can quantify is our petition that we have. And I will say that it's probably a little different. I mean, Not very often, I don't know that you have, petitions that aren't brought around, but we do have a petition from our homeowners association that we went around, and specifically my neighbors too, because I say this for myself, the relationships that I have in Lake Louise goes back 40 years. I grew up in Lake Louise, so I don't do that lightly, in terms of folks that support this. Also importantly, our HOA does not oppose it. Even though I know that there might be some folks who do disagree with this.
And the current HOA rules don't preclude you from doing this.
It does not, I'll be very clear, it doesn't prohibit it, but it doesn't expressly say that you can do it either, right? But it's in that same way, then the HOA is taking a position of no position. Pat will have a conversation with council and figure it out.
Is there any, so these goats are pets, is that right?
Mhm.
There's no commercial plans of any kind?
No.
You're not gonna wind up with like 60 goats or 70 goats like Pat did or anything like that? So this won't be like a goat farm, but these are like pets, like a dog or a cat or anything like that? Okay.
And you know, when you look at that part of the ordinance, it is, the breadth of it is the main text. I mean, it's one sentence that's the prohibitions, and the breadth of it is all the things that we're figuring out to really rein in. We have the same open mind on this with the goats, which is, yes, that's not our intention, but also we defer to you on really reining that in as well, to enforce it. I would just also put this in terms of what would be helpful for us is that, we have I respect the building department, I respect this ordinance, so I think, if there can be a communication to the building department so that we can bring them back home, that would be great. But unless there's some type of communication, I don't feel comfortable, the goats will remain at the farm.
So they're there now?
Yes.
Okay.
Because we don't want to, that puts you in a pickle. You have every right to enforce the ordinance that you have in the books.
Recollection when the big issue came up some years ago is that pig and that family's treatment of that pig was that the pig was a pet.
Yeah.
It wasn't livestock
Yeah.
in the usual sense, like your farm is livestock, pretty much, on a larger basis than one or two goats, right?
The majority of individuals that purchase pygmy goats is for pets. That's the petting zoo mentality. We just take it to the next level because we're a supplier of the 4-H program. But individuals that purchase pygmies is 2 goats because they do get depressed. You want to buy one, a goat will get depressed and won't eat and will die on its own. So you got to have 2. In America, we view pygmies as not livestock. We view them as petting zoo material. We use that now in the medical community and the counseling community as a way of interaction. That's why they call the babies kids, because they are 2 to 3 year old mentalities. And it causes an engagement. That's why I highly encourage if you ever would like to come out and participate in a field yoga activity. I was the biggest critic when a yoga studio called me. Came to rent your ghost for yoga. I thought I was being pumped. But I've been doing this now for 8 years. It brings us back to child mentality. Remember the days before the cell phones, you had the cord, and you knew where somebody was within plus or 6 feet of the cord, you could make a phone call. You remember the days you used to laugh when it was just because it was funny and want that party kid-like giggle? That's what goats bring to the table. When people come out 40 to 60 plus on my farm, each one takes away a different experience. But what they do come away with is with a grin. And they say that's cool. That is a magical part. Children sense it right off the bat because they're loving in nature. So absolutely pets. These are not livestock. This is not a dairy goat. This is not a meat goat. Those are separate. This here is strictly for pets.
And that'd be prohibited under our HOA too. So.
My recollection of the pig issue is that it was a pet, not livestock, so it didn't fall under the ordinance, as I recall. But
No, there was actually a separate section regarding the meat pig. That was amended, so it was actually included, it was just general, no, I think it had, the pig's good or something like that, and it carved out an exception for meat pig with specific conditions.
I mean, we would necessarily have to do this for these 2 goats. An ordinance, exception to the ordinance?
So the ordinance provides that there's, in addition to other animals, no goats are allowed in any platted subdivision on lots less than 2 acres.
You're not.
And we're just under that, but you know, Mark, I have to be honest with you, we're at 1.7. To me, that's almost too cheap by half. To me, the question is the animal. You know, it's not about acreage. I feel uncomfortable unless the ordinance was narrowly tailored to include goats.
Well, I'd like to hear from the building committee.
First of all, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you all for being here. How many members are here in Bridgeville?
Oh, I don't know. We should know that.
Okay,
It's a 50 homes, but
how many officers of the HOA or the committee signed the petition?
none, and I haven't targeted. I haven't. I'll be very honest with you, Sharon. I don't want to talk. I do want to target our HOA members on our board. I thought that this would be a question that would be before them. They took a position as an HOA that said no position, and that's it. I don't want to push them out.
Okay, now I have a question for our solicitor.
Yeah.
Let's just say your HOA does not allow this. Let's say they develop,
Hopeful.
okay, that they don't allow.
Our HOA doesn't allow pigs. So
Okay.
I would feel like, to be honest with you, I don't mean to interrupt, but I would feel uncomfortable owning a pig, regardless of the ordinance, because our HOA doesn't allow
Including the mini pigs?
it. Yeah.
Okay, so if the HOA doesn't allow, let's say the HOA votes, they don't allow those. Okay? Is that done, Bill, then?
I think
There's
that's.
not a thing we can do in the village, if your HOA says no, it's no.
Well, I mean,
Or
again,
yes.
we don't enforce the HOA rules, that's for the HOA to enforce. So our ordinance stands regardless of what the HOA, so if we amend, that's what's allowed in the village. I mean, this is not just specifically for Lake Louise community, I understand.
Okay, so,
It will be
is
village-wide.
this a village issue or an HOA issue?
I have not seen the HOA bylaws and declaration, but I'll take Patrick at his word that in fact it doesn't prohibit goats, so therefore this would be something that, again, the village, it's village-wide, it's a village ordinance, I'm good. So, the HOA is separate, and I think that's separate.
I do have, Patrick had sent me the HOA rules and regs, and it's going back to the 1950s. Everything he stated is accurate. There's a prohibition on pigs in distilleries, which is wrong. The distillers, right? Couple things. Can you describe when the pygmy goes, right? My apologies, it's not a pygmy, it's a Lamacha pygmy.
Yes.
When the Lamacha pygmies are outside, the two of them during the day, describe to me the structure, like the fencing, what it's made out of,
Okay,
how much space it has.
the structure is made out of wood. They have plenty of space to run around. Every day we're out with them. I mean, having these goats is good for us. I mean, every morning we wake up, we're with the animals, and they're a part of our family. We
So-
love these guys.
The fencing you are aware of actually has the imprimatur of South Russell Village. It is Carlene's fencing from the studio. It's been now retrofitted to our vegetable garden in our backyard. We took just one row of the fencing in the very back. We fenced so the goats have a way to run back and forth. Can you visualize that, Chris? It's just, it's over here, it's now over there, so.
Is that, and maybe Marcus or Pat, you can answer this. Goats are known for being real mischievous. Is that enough to contain them within your yard?
Yes.
The wooden fence, the split rail there?
Oh, no, yeah, I was really, so, I mean, this is the iterative part of this, that I'm just, the first night we had them was a Saturday night, there was a horrible rainstorm, this last one, they did great, and we had the fencing up, we think they panicked, they didn't, they did okay, yeah.
And they'll be outside during the daytime, during the winter months.
That, from my understanding that they can, but this is the reason why they even come in at night. I'm a sucker, and they're so adorable and cute. They come in at night. I imagine probably winter time. I'm probably wearing them. You know, but my understanding is they can't.
Goats can survive -20 to 120. These goats do not have horns, so they will require shade because 75% of the way a goat sweats is through horns. Most people don't know that. They think camouflage, or they think it's a way that they can let them play or fight, but they don't. That's how they sweat. So they do need shelter. Freezing rain is a pneumonia problem for a goat, so they do need wind blockage. But that's why I encourage you to come out to my farm and see how I kind of set things up. A good way to handle beyond just wood structures, just have a 2x4 fencing, you get a tractor supply. That's as when the goat can't go through it at all. You have 4x4 field fencing, that becomes problematic if the goats have horns, but these do not. But they won't be able to go through. I have not physically seen his setup. If you'd like to have my opinion about it, I can always run out and just provide observation and suggestion. I do that with all of our people who purchase. It is a lifelong learning. Most vets don't even know how goats operate because they turn to dog, cats, etc. So we've been mentored for 8 years, and we're kind of like the goat whisperers of this area. And so hopefully that helps you.
I thank you all very much. The next,
Just one thing there. So the simplest thing for us to do would amend the ordinance to remove, well, to remove pygmy, but what's the right, macho pygmy goats from the definition of goats.
And we recognize, Councilman, that would take time and consideration from the committee and council, and then we ask that it's interim. Whether or not we'd be willing to have a good pilot study that the building committee can study it, the goats can come back and you can have a field there, and we can just figure out the regs that you want to apply to it. That would be the short term and long term.
Building ready to make a recommendation, or does this require further study?
Either further study, I think the pilot program is actually a pretty nice offer.
why don't we do this?
I don't know if we can do that under the ordinance.
No.
Our next building committee meeting is on Thursday morning, October the 6th at 8 o'clock. At that time, between now and then, the solicitor will give us information, some factual paperwork that we need to do. And then I looked on a Monday, October the 10th, the building committee will come with some sort of recommendation as to how to handle the situation. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
You can stay if you'd like. This is also a good time to go home and do homework.
And you're welcome to have a field here. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Our next visitor on the agenda is Allison Stoke. Allison, if you take that, if you hand it to me, and also go to bed after 2 minutes. Okay, lights on. Give us your name and address. You have 5 minutes, you don't have to stand there. If you're comfortable there, that's all.
Hi, I'm Allison. I'm here with Travis. We are at 11 West Bellmeadow. I'm going to read from here so I can be conscious of my time so I don't forget anything. I would like to discuss my second letter of violation I received. I would like to request that section 1480.02E1 be immediately reviewed by this committee. It states parking of motorized vehicles longer than 72 hours in front yards are prohibited. I agree with this statement, but I do not understand how our driveway is in violation of this. My turnaround or addition to the driveway is gravel portion of my asphalt driveway. And it has a border to keep gravel from falling into grass or front yard. I'm asking why I cannot park a vehicle on this portion of my driveway. The vehicle most often parked in this spot moves often, but if the vehicle is parked there for more than 72 hours, it's not abandoned. And I know it's parked on gravel that is permitted and should not have a time limit to park on. I would like to ask if I'm the only resident who received this violation for parking in a gravel turnaround. If not, how many other violations were mailed out? And why can I not park on this gravel turnaround again? I would also like to bring to the attention, for the sake of other women in my community, I would like this committee to consider the individual newly hired who handles these violation notices. I feel harassed, degraded by this individual. For the sake of time now, I'm not going to get into it, but I would be happy to discuss this further if you have any questions. The zoning officer who gave me these violations made it very clear the consequences I will receive of up to 6 months jail time or $1,000 fee if I fail to comply by September 13th, which is tomorrow. I received this violation Saturday. The first notice I received, I was told that I would have to fix the issue, but there was no time restrictions. When I asked what I needed to fix, it wasn't very clear to me. So I do need to know what I'm in violation of. It's not very clear, so if I need to change something, we will. I just don't know exactly what I need to change. So if council could please give me direction on how to proceed with this violation, which I truly do not believe is in fact a violation of the code. That's all I have.
First of all, don't do anything
Okay,
as issues tomorrow. I think it's the issue boiled down to you have an asphalt driveway and then you're parking on stone on the side next to your driveway.
yeah, so we do have an asphalt driveway, and then there is an addition to that driveway that has been there. We just moved in January, so that was there for, I would say, 5+ years. Looking back on Google Maps, it's always been there. It does have a nice border. It's not just gravel thrown onto the side of the driveway for an addition. It is bordered in. And from my understanding, I do believe that there, you are allowed to have gravel driveways in the village.
So it's like extra wide at the road?
No, it's not at the road. I would say it's, what did you say, a little before halfway. So as anybody would have, like maybe a basketball hoop there or for other parts.
So it's in.
It's it's nowhere near the road.
Maybe our 50 feet off the road more.
You turn left, you come in on an asphalt driveway, the garage is there's some stone on the north side.
Correct.
My recollection is there has to be a hard surface. Hard surface is cement, brick, or asphalt. If your driveway was gravel before the ordinance was adopted, then you would be grandfathered. I think the ordinance was adopted, 15 years ago or maybe more, which I think is why you got that left.
So there's no telling when that gravel driveway was put there though. It could have been put there before, that ordinance was made. I just moved in January, so none of us really would know how long that has been there.
All right, here's what we'll do. We'll do two things. You, first of all, to repeat, don't do anything.
Okay.
I'll check with the building officials tomorrow.
Okay.
That met with you. And then, myself and maybe somebody from HR will meet with you about your comments about our official.
I would like that, yes.
Comments from the council before we move on.
It's 11 West Palmer?
Correct.
First on the left.
Yeah, right across the street.
Any other comments? Allison, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. John Buda is in the audience. He does not wish to speak tonight. Pardon me, I forgot your name.
Jennifer.
Jennifer, would you like to speak or have a question?
Oh, sure.
You know the routine, microphone's still working, you got 5 minutes, name and address.
Sure. My name is Jennifer Donlin. I'm at Waverly Lane in the Emerald Lake neighborhood. And I just came, I made a decision yesterday to come, but I'm just curious about the building that's going on with the water retention. So that's really why I'm here, just to report back to my neighbors, and I'm just curious. Thank you.
Eric, are you prepared to do your engineer's report right now, or do you want to wait until on the normal issue of the normal agenda?
Council's pleasure.
Okay.
You can go ahead and then she will next.
Oh, I don't mind saying. It's okay. I'm curious too. I mean, I haven't attended one of these in a really long time, and I chose this over school board.
So you're talking about the Manor Brook project, not the other one, right?
Well, the one that's near the lantern.
Okay.
I know a little, I heard from another neighbor who lives in Manor Brook about that one, but I'm more curious about this because I've heard that it goes into the Chagrin Lakes, and I know it's been communicated, but it's a visual now that I just was wondering what the project was.
All right, Eric, we'll have you go and
Certainly.
give us an update
Thank
also.
you.
Just to touch on both of the projects, we'll start with the Manor Brook Stream Restoration first briefly, since you seem to be a little more aware of that one. The Manor Brook Stream Restoration project came about because the village commissioned a drainage study, and one of the results of the drainage study was we've got a pipe that goes under 306 from the east side to the west side that's really undersized, and it causes a lot of backup and some localized flooding on the east side of 306. So we need to upsize that pipe to get it from basically from an 18-inch to a 30-inch pipe, and get it across the road. Doing so would take the water that used to accumulate and have temporary storage, flooding on the east side of 306, and just move that more quickly to the west. Looking to minimize the impact or negate the impact of that to everyone downstream, that's kind of where we came up with the stream restoration project in creating a really wide floodplain and a meandering stream course that slows the water down and allows it to pile up. And we figured the volume of the floodplain created was equal to the amount of water that was kind of de facto being stored on the east side of 306. So that's how the culvert and the stream restoration project are related. They're sized accordingly. And it's our intent to have a net zero effect for everyone downstream of that. Moving on to the central retention basin, which sits on village property just south of Village Hall. There is an existing 15-inch culvert that goes under 306, and it's not in bad condition, but it is undersized, and at times, as I'm sure you're aware, during big rain events, the roadway is submerged, and we have to either close the road or the police have to be out there to guide people through, because you shouldn't be driving through flowing water that goes over a road. And it's a main arterial through the village and a state route. So it's kind of at the top of our priority list to make sure that doesn't happen. The pipe that, like I said, it's a 15-inch pipe that goes under the road there. It goes right next to the small dentist office across the street from our building. They've been flooded out in the past. Once the water reaches the road, everything downstream gets flooded. That water eventually gets to the swim lake in the Chagrin Lakes subdivision. And then from there, it disperses out farther south and eventually makes its way to the McFarland Creek watershed, or farther west and makes its way to the McFarland Creek watershed. The reason for the retention basin is the same explanation scenario as the Manor Brook stream restoration. When we replace that culvert, the undersized 15-inch culvert under the road, that would just shove more water at a faster rate downstream. Sure, it would keep the water from piling up and going over the road, but now it just moves it downstream to the swim. The first property to receive that water is really the swim lake. And they're already experiencing flooding during big events, so we didn't want to make the problem worse. So in conjunction with that future pipe replacement, we're going to put a restrictor plate in there to keep it flowing at a maximum of 15 inches, which flows now until it goes over the road, and have a space for all of that water to pile up here on the east side of 306 to kind of buffer that flow so that it'll be a dry basin, there'll be no water in it during non-rainy times. And when we get a large rain event and the flow of that water starts exceeding the capacity of our 15-inch restrictor plate, which mirrors the 15-inch culvert that goes under there presently, it piles up and backwaters, and that whole area will be submerged in water for a period of
several hours until it can slowly drain back out after the rain stops. And that serves to buffer the flow and create a net zero effect for the folks downstream while eliminating the risk of flooding over the road. So that's the impetus of both of those projects, are kind of stormwater buffers and equalizers while we solve a problem.
Thank you.
So before I move on to like the other couple items I have in my engineer report, are you okay with? Okay.
Thank you.
And we're supposed to finish by October 29th, Eric?
Yeah, both projects have a give or take Halloween completion date. And we're well on track to see that date.
Eric, I'm gonna reference your map right up to your left there.
Okay.
The green area is, the area that we have redone. And we met, last Thursday. Eric had an excellent meeting with neighbors from Manorville on buffers. Nobody wants to see the traffic on 306 or hear the noise, so we had an excellent meeting. And on December the 8th at 9 o'clock in the morning, we're gonna walk that property, once the trees are all down and everything, leaves are gone, to see what needs to be done as far as buffering that. But yeah, they left here very happy with.
I think they were just a little more reassured that we weren't going to be neglecting them.
And this one, I think the other comment, when the dirt was piled 10 feet tall right along Chillicothe, people got very concerned, but, that lasted maybe from Friday afternoon to about Monday morning when it was storing the topsoil. That's why it looked like such a huge mound.
Right, we've got a tight work area for the central retention basin. We're trying to disturb as little as possible. So they just needed a place to pile up their topsoil temporarily until they could get the excavation done. And since then, they've been pulling it back down. There won't be a big mound adjacent to 306 as a result of the project.
All right, 4 still yours, what is that?
I do have one question about that project.
Certainly.
I noticed during the past week or so, there was a flurry of activity with a lot of people taking pictures and everything else like that around the border where that project meets or interfaces with the wetlands restoration.
Correct.
Was there an issue? Did we encroach on that? What happened?
There was/is an issue with that. When that project was installed, the village made a commitment to allow that to remain untouched or maintained as a wetland area for the remainder of the project life. Unfortunately, that project area went right up to and included the mouth of the culvert that goes under the road. So since our retention basin also will drain through that culvert, we had to get to that culvert to make sure that, we kept a drainable grade from our retention basin to that culvert. So a portion of that wetland area was impacted by our construction. Chagrin River Watershed Partners and the EPA both raised issue with it. We let them know that, yes, we had to guarantee our contractor use of the site to get in and construct our improvement. And we will be putting the wetland features and the wetland characteristics back when we're done. And that they seem to be okay with that.
We had a good Zoom meeting with them Thursday mornings with the EPA, Chagrin River Watershed Partners, explaining what happened, what's been done, provided them with the pictures and everything. The only thing was, had an issue with the silt fence, but that really didn't involve us.
Well, it involves me, and I'm making sure that gets put back. Early on, Mr. Excavator conformed with their stormwater pollution prevention plan. That's part of the contract documents and plan set. They took it down when they started moving the topsoil around out of convenience, and I informed them that they won't be paid for anything until they put that back. So that's an ongoing issue. I expect to have that resolved in the next couple of days. Briefly, our road program is well underway. The only things that we have left to complete is the sweeping and removing of the loose chip seal material in the parking lot. The next step is they come, after it gets packed in, rolled in, trafficked in, they pick up whatever doesn't stick, and then they apply a heavy seal coat to the whole thing. So that work is still pending, and we still have a couple of miscellaneous base repair items that need to be completed throughout the village, and that work's still pending and ongoing. But overall, Specialized is doing a great job. We expect to be around $19,000 or so below our awarded contract amount, and we're going to roll that savings into Reclamite as part of a separate contract for some of the streets that we paved this year and last year. The only other thing I've got, pending any questions from council, is on Friday we had a bid opening for, I'm going to say, the chief's signal replacement project. It's the village's signal replacement project, but the chief has been really instrumental in seeing this thing through and making sure it gets done. Our engineer's estimate was around $300,000 for the project, for the construction portion of the project. We received bids ranging from $298,000, but all the way down to 200 as a high to $238,000 as a low. So it appears that the winning bid is from Ferrum Electric for $238,150. That's an OPWC funded project, and you're looking to get around $146,000 in grant money to offset the village's share of that. So things turned out really well. I was super happy with the bids, and I think Ferrum that gave the contractor that gave us the low bid is a good contractor to work with, and we're looking forward to getting that started.
Questions of our engineer? That's quite a report.
So the traffic light's gonna cost us like $100,000.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice work, chief.
Good job.
I have a little note here from council meeting minutes from 1971. The first traffic light went in at 306 in Bell, and the bid was it was actually $2,400, $2,466, and now we're replacing it for $240,000. Times have changed.
The signals that we're putting in are, in defense of that, in addition to inflation, are much nicer. We're not going to have a strain wire with the signal swinging around. We're going to have legitimate, mast arms and poles, painted black, a nice looking signal installation.
I remember when that light went in.
You were just there then.
Does that include the crosswalk?
There
Is there a crosswalk part of the project?
There is no crosswalk.
I thought there was gonna be a crosswalk.
We decided to be an intersection, but not a village.
Eric mentioned, I believe you mentioned.
I
We can put a head signal, a couple of head signals or three or however many you want, with crosswalks there as part of a future project, because the signal controllers that we specified will accommodate those.
Okay. All right, we'll worry about that down the road.
Any other questions of our engineer? If not, we're back to the mayor's report. Sent out the mayor's report, was in your packets. A couple of things that have changed since then. We did put a mention in the newsletter, looking for people. We looked for people for BZA, had very little, if any, response. We had 7 people applied to be an alternate to the planning commission. They were all invited to come to the council meeting the special planning commission meeting last Thursday. 5 of the 7 were able to attend, and they, I guess Councilman Bell called it a spirited meeting. So they got a flavor of planning commission. I and maybe Danielle both, if we have time, to go to a healthcare activity in Independence, just looking at the cost of healthcare. I think we're all very concerned about what the cost is going to be. On Wednesday night, I'm going to the Health District Advisory Committee. It's made up of everybody in Charlotte County. I'm not, I'll know more when I come back, so I'll just leave it at that. Investments, we're doing the meter, there's a Zoom with the meter at 2:00 on Thursday across the board, investigating and testing money. Twin River Watershed Partners, their meeting is at 4:00. And then on a side note, I did send an email to Adam. I think he's gonna be in town, December 16th and beyond, and we're trying to look at getting a date for a Christmas luncheon. Like to recognize Adam at that time, so we'll just keep working on that. Contacted CXT for bids on the restroom. Basically, we're looking at the restroom, the pictures that we've shown, pictures that Rich Washington showed us. I found one called the Denali. It's basically one building, 2 doors, and the thing I like about it, it's got a green roof. So it kind of fit in with the park. The rain garden gets installed on September 26th. It's going to be installed for free by Chagrin River Watershed Partners. And at this time, Tim, I just want to let you know, Tim is going to be our representative to the Geauga Safety Council, and he'll know more about that once he comes back. This is something Dave did, Laura did, Danielle did, and it's trickled to Tim now. And when we established the ESID board, which we're working towards, we're going to make a move for the chair of the Public Utilities Committee, which will be Mark, will be serving on that board. We'll have the paperwork, and we should be ready shortly to go with the ESID board. Any questions?
The rain garden, did you say September 23rd, Mayor?
September 26th.
26th.
Now, Mayor, by them putting in that rain garden, is that a rain garden in perpetuity?
It should be, if it's done properly. It should be something that you put in and walk away from.
Well, what I'm really asking is, that precludes us from forever using that property for anything else, for any other purpose.
I don't think the rain garden does.
We could mow it.
Because it's not like the 319 grant where we had to have an environmental like, covenant on there.
That was my question.
Yeah,
because
I would be against that. I want to avoid those forever environmental covenants as much as possible.
Correct.
So the point of the rain garden is that you throw seeds and have stuff grow and you really kind of ignore it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not,
Designed to catch that water that's
Yeah.
coming down the hill before it gets.
it's encourage pretty stuff to grow.
Mayor, you mentioned the installation of the rain garden is free, but it has no cost, but I'm just curious, what is the actual cost to it?
I don't know.
Oh. And was it approved by council? Is it something that the park committee had recommended? I apologize, I don't recall.
Haven't we done it for a few days, 30 years? Yeah, we've talked about it. I don't know if we've ever had a formal,
We have not. We have talked about it in the past.
Okay, I think it should, I mean, you're doing an improvement, right? Is this at the park? I apologize. Okay. Yeah, I would think that the motion, please.
And
A recommendation from the park committee or properties committee.
who is actually installing it? Are we?
I have no idea.
Chagrin River Watershed Partners, they've been talking to Rich Washington from CT, and I don't know who's doing the actual labor. So there you go.
We don't know who's doing the labor, what the costs are, but
There's no cost to us.
And we have an actual location for the rain garden that's been decided by council or just recommended by the park committee or the property committee?
Recommended by Rich Washington from CT when he did his master plan.
Yeah, it does show up on the master plan.
Yeah, it's on the master plan.
Have we accepted that? I think we should probably take action formally. And I know you're saying this is going in on the 26th, so maybe a motion tonight.
Okay, we'll get one ready here in a few minutes. It's just the rain garden on the property committee.
It's for the rain garden.
That's, absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions of the mayor? Fiscal officer, you're up.
I distributed my report to mayor and council. I don't know if there are any questions.
Good.
yeah, I did have one question, and this is primarily on the bill from the solicitor. And I noticed the biggest expenditures, a couple of the biggest expenditures. One was the red barn. Was that principally about the signage?
Yes, there was also an appeal from planning commission to the BZA, which is a very atypical appeal. our zoning code needs some amending. Let's just say that, and, this is one of those appeals, I don't think they've ever, no one on planning commission has ever seen an appeal like that. So that did take a lot of research. There was a lot of back and forth, the applicant did hire legal counsel, so it was engaged with counsel, and there was a whole revision of the plan, for different, actually 2 revisions, and then the planning commission, it was, there was a lot.
Okay, because it did seem like, pretty heavy charge there.
Yes.
And the other question I had was, there's an issue with, I guess, conflict of interest. I noticed over $1,000 of charges of conflict of interest. Do we have a conflict of interest? And, one of the things that I found very helpful when it comes to conflict of interest during the past couple of years is a phone call to the Ohio Ethics Commission. Oftentimes, free of charge resolves any questions that might arise about conflict of interest. So I just offer that in the future, so.
Any other questions of our fiscal officer?
Just an observation, every month this year, our income tax net has exceeded the amounts in all prior years. And do you see any change to that?
We don't know. I mean, that's the big thing. There was just a story on the news about it last week too, that now people who were told they were going to be allowed to stay home, but remotely, now their employers are deciding to send them back to work. So if some of those employers, like Cleveland, somewhere in Cleveland, those employees that are now working at home and we're collecting those income taxes, they go back to Cleveland with the lose that. So it's still, we don't know. I mean, it's still been making a lot of shifts. Right?
Do the employers choose where to pay the taxes?
Well,
Or do the
if
employees have to ask?
No, but if employees are working at home, then they're supposed to withhold first, South Russell.
Yeah.
And, it's where you're physically working, so that's how they're supposed to be withholding. If they're not, then they have to be looking straight out at the end of the year.
Right, there was a case pending before the Ohio Supreme Court on this very issue. And I don't think there's been a ruling yet.
Still pending.
All right, thank you.
The other thing I had was, just so you know, we did get, some of the building department, we've just been trying to go through and get, forfeitures done for people who have had their final inspections. They get several notices, and if they don't do it or don't comply, they forfeit their construction deposit. So she sent some letters out, and we have one person who now, they're requesting, the money back and not for it to be forfeited. So I don't know all the details on that, we would get it from you. So I guess I just want to let you know that we're gonna have them, we were asking the council if you would listen to this hearing, like maybe at the beginning of the next council meeting, so we can get this cleared up and then they can present their case to you. It's like a forfeiture hearing, rather than setting a special time, since we're gonna have an executive session for this week, we just do it at the beginning of the next council meeting. And then the, people will be notified that we're going to do that, so if they want to come and fight their case.
There would be a hearing on a forfeiture, council hearing on a forfeiture
Yeah.
proceeding.
To go back to the people instead of to the contractor.
Instead of to the village, because they've kind of forfeited.
Right, and I think it's actually, am I wrong on this? It's the contractor.
It's the
It
contractor.
is not the homeowners that are.
Okay. It is one contractor, I believe, with 3
Correct.
different properties. They have a tendency not to get their final inspections. So, because, realistically, those costs, they roll into the cost of the project, and then they never follow up and get the final inspection, so that they get more, they don't care if it costs anything. But now that they got this letter, they're requesting that money back, but you have to remember, there's legal fees for our solicitor, there's fees for Dave to go out and do the inspections, fees for you. So that might be something you want to keep in mind, so we just gonna put everything together, we'll get it out to you in the next council packet, so you're gonna be all ready for the council meeting. And, Ruth and Dave, we're gonna ask them to put together what costs they have, so that when you hear, you'll know what it's all going to cost the village. So that'll be, at the beginning of the next council meeting. And then lastly, I forwarded information from OML to elected officials for the OML conference, which is October 12th to the 14th. I don't know if anybody's planning on going. We have 2 members that are going to be going. So if anybody else is going to go, please let me know, because the deadline date for the earlier cost is this Friday. And then I have to let you know about doing the launching and how we do all that because of, you know, the reimbursed and all that, so. If you let me know by like Wednesday, then those, we can do it with registration.
Questions of our fiscal officer? Okay, finance committee, you're up.
The Finance Committee is scheduled to meet this Friday, and we have nothing further to report.
Questions of the finance committee? Solicitor, you're up.
I have nothing to report.
I'd like to also echo Councilman Galicki's comment about the red line. Nice job. Just trying to follow your notes were just like, wow.
Honestly, you should give the thanks to BZA. They did a phenomenal job on the appeal that was not easy and not typical. It hasn't been seen in I don't know how many years.
There were 18 different entries that you had to do. Nice job. Okay, questions over solicitor? Our engineer is finished. Street commissioner, you're up.
I submitted my monthly report for August. Are there any questions? Other than that, I'd like to add that the banner was put up today for the Fall Fest, and we are in Fall Fest mode. Now, we're gonna be working there probably all the rest of this week. I'd like to put the floor in the tea house, install a park bench, and possibly put in the 3 benches that we received from the Twinkley company. And also the last 7 loads of clay from the central retention basin were dropped off in front of the salt bomb to buffer the sides of the concrete. That's all I have.
Questions of the street commission? Okay, hearing none. Tim and Eric, the rest of the meeting, frankly, I think it's all finances. If you guys want to make it an early night, feel free. Street committee.
Mayor, the street committee had its meeting this past week, last Friday. The minutes from the council packets, along with the meetings from the prior meeting in August. Of interest to council may be that the committee discussed the possibility of going out for bid for the 4 culverts that are under 306. And that it would be good to do it sooner rather than later, go out for bid, that is, so that the project can commence potentially in the November, December timeframe. And that would be essentially after the completion of the Nannerbrook and Central Retention Basin projects. This is the next step, upsize the culverts running under 306. And then, once that's done, the state is going to, next year, perhaps, we think, repay 306. So we will have the culverts installed before the repaving is done. And with that, Mayor, if it's appropriate under ordinances and resolutions, I'll be making that motion. I think it is only an ordinance
Just a motion to go out for bid.
for the engineer, the mayor, and fiscal officer to prepare and put out for bid that project. And I had mentioned that we were going to have possibly, depending on people's availability, a special meeting, Danielle, September 21st, for Streets Committee to consider its budget. Councilman Bell is available and Street Commissioner as well. We would do that at 7:30 in the morning at the Street Commissioner's office for discussion of the budget. Street Commissioner, Streets Department budget, I should say. And subject to mentions or input from Councilman Bell, that'd be it.
So you made a motion to go out for bid on this culvert?
No, I haven't done that yet. This,
Hold on.
I'll do it under ordinances and resolutions. I can do it now. If Chris has more to add, we should probably do that first.
I have nothing to add.
I can do that.
A motion right now, Chris, in a second.
Sure. There I move that the mayor, fiscal officer, and the engineer be authorized to go out for bid for the Chillicothe Road Route 306 culvert project. So moved.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Questions over the street committee?
Mark, just one comment on the street committee meeting notes of August 12th. In the last item, I'm listed as meeting with the mayor and residents of Nannerbrook. I don't recall being at that meeting.
You were not, but the mayor mentioned that you and he would be meeting with Manor leadership about the project.
No, I would not be involved in that, so take me off that list.
I may have said it, but I was wrong.
Oh,
Okay, thank you. Just to clarify the notes.
Very good. You can make that change, Danielle, as
I got some meetings, August.
August.
Building committee, you're up.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. The next building committee meeting will be October 6th at 8 a.m. Building met on September the 1st, and council received the minutes. I would like to highlight just one thing that's not in the minutes. But if there are any questions about the minutes, September 1st. Okay, received an email today, I don't know if I pronounced his name right, but Nick Nicolak of 1580 Bell, whose house burned not too long ago. And, he's making a request, and I need your advice. He is paid just over $5,000 in permit fees. And of course, unfortunately, his house burned. Now, he's going to rebuild. And he's going to have to pay those permit fees again. Now, he was just wondering if there was something special council can do about this, that either waive the permit fees or discount the permit fees, and I do not have an answer. I don't know. I spoke to Dave Kosovar, and I asked him if this ever happened before in his career. This event like this, he said never before. So I'm seeking opinions. Is this something that he just has to bite the bullet, pay the permit fee again, or?
And you have to pay Dave again, right, to do all the inspections. You have to pay Dave again to do all the inspections. And just,
I have been told by Dave that he can go one way or the other.
So it's the exact same house in the exact same place?
Yes. Now, the owner of that house, the gentleman who emailed, made it clear that it's going to cost him 20% more because of supplies and all that. Now, I was under the impression that the builder of the home did not transfer the ownership to the new owner. So then all that liability was on the builder of the home. But it was explained to me today by the owner that since he owned the land, he owned the land, and he employed this building company to build the home, that he owned the home already. There was no transfer. He was and is insured. I did ask him if he had replacement costs, and he does have replacement costs, but there's a ceiling on just how much replacement cost he can receive, which is a former insurance agent, that's new to me, but things have changed now for years. But that's where he's at. He's about $150,000 increase to build that home. And he just made the request. That's why I'm bringing it here to council and seeking opinions.
Jerry, one point is, it's my understanding that the final inspections were never done, so it's technically still open.
That is correct. Dave said that the final inspection was not completed. I spoke with Ruth today, and she did inform me that since they were building a new home, they'll be building the home once again, rebuild it, that those permits have to be closed first, and then open new permit.
So the only issue is do we charge for it?
That's what he's requesting, whether or not council could, offer an opinion if he could possibly, since he already paid once, if he needs to pay again, full price for the permits, or if there's some type of a discount.
Did they do inspections along the way?
I asked Dave if he did a final inspection, that's the only question I asked him, he said no.
Pouring footers and all that.
Yeah, I mean,
There's a lot of preliminary things that go on.
We probably should look into this a little bit more, but I'm asking for your,
Solicitor, I'm reading your face. Can you want to weigh in on this?
I would just like to know, I mean, are they the exact same plans? This is the exact same footprint of the house. It's already been reviewed to a certain point. I mean, you know, the permits are usually good for a substantial amount of time. It's a substantial completion or a certain date. So I mean, I don't know about the permit fees, but I'm thinking of the inspections. I can't imagine that Mr. Nicolak would want to do this without having the actual inspections.
well, he would probably want it to be inspected, yes.
Right, so, but that's part of the point, right? So that's some of the, yeah, so that's part of it. But the permit is still there. They can still build. In other words, I actually think they go into the BZA and receive a variance. Maybe not for the house. Maybe it was for
The
the,
driveway.
was it? And then it
Number
was-
two was in the board.
Okay, and maybe also the garage?
Yes.
I could be wrong, so, but I don't know if the garage is at all affected. But I guess my point is that all still stands, that still stands.
Okay,
with the-
pardon me, I'm sorry. I did ask him if it was gonna be a complete build, he said, no, they were able to save about 10% of the house.
But it's the same footprint, again, exact same.
Well, I can't
plan.
say,
Right.
I'm assuming that, but I can't say, you know, fact.
If it's the same footprint, I wouldn't have, for example, I wouldn't have to re-review his site plan if he's building it back how it was before. I've already done that, presuming he's not changing grading, size of the house, the way the property drains, like he could save on my portion if he was building exactly the same thing, because I really have nothing to do with it once construction starts. My work's already done. So we could save that, for instance, for sure.
The permit sounds like he's pulled all of the permits. It's
So it's
just,
just the inspection.
it's the inspections, and again, I would think that, I can't, are new footers? I have no idea. Will new footers have to be affordable?
Supposedly, I heard one wall was damaged in the fire. As far as the basement, one wall of the
Oh.
basement, I'm sorry.
So that might have to be,
They
I
have
don't
to
know
be
what kind of
redone.
local house is, but would they have to re-pour those footers? I don't know. Is that a footer?
Probably not a footer.
Okay.
But-
So, I mean, I would think though that, I don't, I mean, it would be Dave's time. I mean, I can't imagine we would want a house to go up, regardless of whether or not it's safe, you know, footprint, or whether or not there's a permit pulled without having an inspection. So it's a question of, you know,
Well, he's not asking to waive the inspections, he's asking to waive the fees.
permit fees. It sounds like those have already been, paid for.
Well, they have, but except the final inspection wasn't
Okay.
done, right? So, and then there's some cost to a final inspection. So it seems fair that we wouldn't charge them, or they wouldn't be charged for the final inspections twice when it wasn't done to begin with because of the fire. I don't know what final inspections cost, I don't get a feel for that, but maybe we need some more information before.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mark. Can we ask that Dave Hosevar meet with the homeowner and determine, you know, how much work he thinks there's going to be in this process and report back to us?
How much work for Dave?
For Dave, yeah, how many inspections you think you're gonna have to do, and, you know, we have a fee for Dave doing inspections, and, you know, if Dave says, oh, I only need to do half of what I normally would do, or I need to do 3/4 or whatever, then, you know, that might give us some more direction as to what we can do to help this homeowner.
Now, Dave now is in Kentucky, I don't know how long. he's
Okay,
gonna stay in
well-
Kentucky, but
When he comes back, you know, we'll get it done.
Recall the fees associated with Dave's contract are different now from the first inspection where we paid an extra fee on top of that.
Yeah, we're gonna be paying Dave either way.
Yeah,
The
but
question
let-
is, do we pass that on to the homeowner?
Yeah, but let's find out from Dave what Dave thinks he's got in it, and then that'll tell us how much money we're arguing for.
Okay.
Thank you.
We've already talked about the mini goats. So we have that work on Chris. Chris, anything to add? Since you are our building expert.
I've learned a lot about goats in the last few weeks. And, I might take up Mr. Miller's offer and come out and see his goats in the farm. So, if anyone wants to join me, you're more than welcome.
You have straw hat.
I do not have straw hat yet. Tomorrow, so I will when we go to the farm.
Any other comments to the building committee?
No, sir.
I have one, I'm sorry. So when, at the last building committee meeting, when Mr. Holtz was there, did he propose certain conditions with respect to amending the ordinance? In other words, he mentions night, for instance, keeping them inside overnight. I'm just wondering, because I think if the October 6th, what I heard from the mayor was it sounded like October 6th at the building committee, there might be some suggestion of an amendment, and then to October 10th, which seems pretty fast.
What he said tonight was pretty much what he said.
Okay.
Everything he said tonight is pretty much hard and copy.
Do you think he'll be reaching out to you with his proposed, I guess, conditions of how he wants this
Some, yes, my understanding. He has a petition.
to go? Okay,
He has two different petitions. One's for the pilot program idea in Lake Louise, to get buy-in from them with the village legislature, do a pilot program, we'll see how those work.
okay.
Of 94. The other one is to go around the entire community for an amendment to the ordinance. In the one for Lake Louise, for the pilot program, it says here the biscuit Snickers will sleep indoors, they'll come inside by 9 PM on all days. They won't come outside before 8 AM on weekdays and before 9 AM on weekends. Any other conditions offered by South Roseland Village Council and Building Department. So he's open to us defining what those
So
conditions are.
I must just not be listening well. He wants a pilot program, and if after that we say,
Well-
next,
I think what he's saying is, I understand that an ordinance would take a long time, there might be some hesitation to alter the ordinance. He's offering to have a pilot program where they go to Better House under our conditions to see how it works out. Does it disturb the neighbors? Is it a bigger deal than we thought it was in our heads? Maybe we'll find out it's more of a nuisance than it really, than we expected. And so I think that's his olive branch, saying, yeah, I'm willing to do something,
so then if
so we can try it on a temporary
if
basis.
it doesn't work out, he's gonna accept what's said.
Yes, he's been, well, in my communication with him, he's been very clear that he's obviously petitioning his government, but he will respect it, whether we say, if we say no, they'll take it goes back, and that's where they're gonna live, is my understanding.
Perhaps I misheard the solicitor earlier, but did you say that we could not have a pilot program?
Without fully looking into it, my recommendation would be not to have a pilot program.
So looking good.
But, I mean, I could look into it if you know. I don't know. I feel like that would be, you're essentially, you know, right, you're basically allowing someone to violate.
It seems like the HOA should take precedence.
Well, they don't prohibit it, but, you know, if we're gonna do a pilot program, it sounds to me like we have to have an ordinance for pilot programs. It seems like more work for the solicitor than is perhaps warranted at this point.
And Brady, what takes precedence under the PECI? Can HOAs be more restrictive
Yes.
than
Typically, yes.
the village government? So,
Typically, yes, because you're in a private, it's a private organization. Right?
and I don't know how Patrick may have asked the question, but potentially he could have skirted that whole issue with the HOA.
I have no idea. I just received the declaration.
Well, but the HOA can't allow animals, the village prohibits.
Actually, I don't know if that's
I think
necessary.
that's-
I mean, listen, what trumps would be the village ordinance, no question.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
So-
they can legislate that.
Well,
way.
they-
The HOA,
sure,
the
but-
enforcement would be that they are prohibited.
If they permit, you know, grizzly bears, and our ordinance does not permit grizzly bears, we win. And I think that goes all the way down the line. They can't authorize stuff we prohibit.
But the HOA can be more restrictive.
They can't.
Absolutely, and that's our contract. Absolutely, that's the
All
way.
right, building committee, you got your hands full on October the 6th. Good luck.
Yeah.
Anything else for building committee?
That's why I asked the question. How many members were on the HOA and did any of them sign a petition? And none.
No,
27.
sorry,
The
Chairman.
Mr. Mayor, the solicitor has been around.
Sorry. Do you need me at that October 6th meeting? And I don't know if that will happen, if I don't know if Patrick wants necessarily solicited him. Again, what the mayor had suggested with that the solicitor will come up with some regulations, I think. And I don't know if that's the way to go.
I think the building committee at least needs to have in their hands the regulations. I don't know that we have in our hands the regulation, our code. You got it,
Well,
you
we have
got
the code, I just was wondering if we could
Code
review
and
it.
some
I have never seen the
paperwork.
petition that he submitted, so maybe that's, okay,
Yeah, probably. I do.
Why, may I invite you to that meeting?
I would be happy to attend.
If not, it's just, we're spinning wheels here. Anything else on the building committee? All right, chief, you're up.
Other than my month-end report, I have no report. Thank you very much. Move on.
Thank you for coming in and working this morning.
My pleasure.
All right, we are now at the, safety committee.
Safety Committee met at, on first of September, 0900 at the Sherman Falls Police Department, the South Russell Village Police Department. The minutes are included as part of your council packages. I would like to propose one motion, and I would like to propose or move that we approve the sale of not excess weapons, but weapons that were either turn-ins by citizens or end of the custody chain to Jaga Pond in the amount of $150.
So moved in second.
I'll second.
Second discussion.
Yes, this is really more of a motion to accept the check, not necessarily the sale. The sale is actually approved by court order.
Amended to approve the sale or the accept the check and remuneration for the sale of weapons to Jaga Pond.
Then moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Subject to any questions, that concludes the report of safety committee.
Questions of the safety committee? HR committee.
HR met September 9th at 2 p.m. To report to you, it is the recommendation of the HR committee that we seek a fiscal auditor. The option that had previously been discussed will not work. So we are looking for a fiscal auditor to fulfill that role for our village. So if anyone's got suggestions, residents or whatever that might fill the bill, we're totally open to that. We have rethought the part-time administrative assistant position. We are trying to see if we can find someone who is looking for more casual hours. We don't need as many hours as we thought we did. But we certainly do have an issue where our administrative assistant or our assistant in the building department, if they go on vacation, we certainly have a void that we need to address. So working with the fiscal officer to continue on that plan. The mayor, the fiscal officer, and I met with a representative of Colonial Life Insurance. This is a company that provides a variety of different insurance opportunities for individuals, whether that be dental, short-term disability, life insurance, et cetera, et cetera. It's often offered to employees on an employee-paid basis. And so at the end of that meeting, HR committee met and we talked about it, and so we would like to make a motion and a recommendation to council that council direct the mayor and the fiscal officer to allow Colonial Life Insurance Company to meet with all the employees of the village during normal working hours, to present opportunities for employees to obtain additional insurance benefits as they may desire. And that the fiscal officer be directed to administer any such payroll deduction plan and vendor payments in conjunction with this benefit plan. So moved.
And second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Okay.
Dennis is downstairs, I think.
Thank you.
Absent at the moment, okay. The HR committee solicited, bids from human resource companies to come in and to consult on our employee salary matrix that we've been working on to get them to review it. And we had 2 quotes. I'll tell you that in my notes, which I provided to you this evening, Clemens Nelson quote was approximately $11,000 to do the work. Mansard Gavin, which is another company, quoted about $1,400. So I'd like to make a motion to council on HR's recommendation that we accept the quotation from Mansard Gavin and hire them as a consultant to evaluate and advise on the employee salary matrix at $1,400.
And I will
So-
second.
Discussion.
Is the statement of work significantly different between the 2 firms?
I think what Clemens Nelson, from their quotation, they wanted to go back and open up the entire project from the beginning. And Mansard Gavin was more willing to say, okay, you've got this body of work, we'll review what you've done, and then we will make recommendations or comments based on your work. So I think it was an entirely different perspective. Both firms are used throughout Geauga County, I think that's fair, okay? So they're both reputable, but, so our recommendation is Mansard Gavin. Okay.
Are we gonna vote
I'm sorry, I made the motion, and we had a second.
Been moved in second.
Discussion.
Change discussion.
Yeah.
We've had a move second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I see.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Okay, finally, HR committee has a motion for you to approve, having dinner that we had tonight for the strategic planning meeting. We need a motion from council to approve that is a good expense. And additionally, to approve for the veterans luncheon that we will hold in November, that the cost is approximately $2,500.
I will move that we, feed ourselves when necessary, and that we, hold happily the veterans luncheon. Can it be every year or just for this year? That we have a veterans luncheon
This year.
this year. We will eat in 2022.
This been moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. All opposed?
I'm trying to say, are you proposing you don't pay for tonight's thing, is that what you're saying?
No, no.
No, okay, I just wanted.
I was on board for a second.
On the last vote, about the veterans lunch, I abstain. As a veteran.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion passed.
And subject to further questions, that concludes the report, unless Council Calhoun has
You
something.
covered that very thoroughly.
Thank you.
The only thing that, I take that back, the only thing that we still need to say out loud, fiscal auditor does not have to be a CPA. It can be someone that's done bookkeeping and has, knows their business.
And I ran both, I started both ads again today, so.
Thank you.
Okay, we are at the property committee.
Thank you once again, Mayor. Property met September 1st and September 9th. You received the minutes. I have a few more comments to make about them, but they're important. Okay, first of all, I would like to make a motion to vote and to agree upon Village Hall reservation request, and a $25 deposit from the Bellwood Club, would like to meet, have a meeting here on October 17th at 7 p.m.
And move second,
Second.
second by,
Are you waiving, you're allowing it and waiving the
Yes,
discussion,
who seconded, I'm sorry.
Kavanaugh. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Okay, now, I can make a motion to have a rain garden developed at our village park by the Chagrin River Watershed Partners. That was recommended by CT Consultants.
That's no cost to the village.
No cost.
No cost to the village.
Thank you.
I will second that.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Okay, our fall festival, we crossed our T's and dotted our I's. The,
Okay, two things, yeah. Keep going.
okay. The banner, as the street commissioner mentioned, is up, looking sharp. All the contracts have been signed, sealed and delivered. All we need is good weather. And I have a feeling we're gonna have some good weather.
Jerry, don't you?
I'm not jinxing. You know, I have an end, with the weather, remember that. So anyway, we're looking forward to a great festival on September 25th. As you noticed in minutes, we have approximately 21 volunteers, and I do have the permission, not permission, but the waivers for them to sign. We're all set with that. That'll be done. Let's see. I had a meeting. It was kind of neat. I went to school with her at Warren Harding. Jean Hood, who was a member of the Chagrin Falls Cats Den Garden Club. They would like to they'd like to plant 1,000 daffodils at our park. And great thing about this is, there's no cost. Plus the fact there's no maintenance. Once you're planted, that's it. So I guess I have to make a recommendation for that too. Okay. So I would like to make a motion that the council vote and approve that the Chagrin Falls Cats Den Garden Club be allowed to plant 1,000 daffodils at our park. And picture this: if you stand in the northwest corner of the pavilion, walk diagonal about
100 feet?
100 feet. There'll be a strip of 3 feet by 6 feet.
I say stand in Bell Road and look towards the park, but don't do that.
Exactly.
So two things, I'll second that motion, but we wanna, thank Tim because he's already prepared the pot that they're gonna, bury these bulbs in. And Mrs. Hood said in her email, they go someplace different every year. They plant 1,000 bulbs for different people every year as a starting point. So thank you, Tim. Thank you, Mrs. Hood.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Is the Parks Committee,
Oh, they're 100% behind.
and their recommendation is to go forward?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, from that.
Oh, yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Daffodils are in. Thank you.
Ruth, anything else to add?
You did a great job.
Well, thank you, Ruth. The Ruth and Jury Show, right?
I'm gonna interrupt you.
Okay.
Now, Ruth and Jerry goes down. We are concerned, I think everyone, I am with everybody, with volunteers. We've got somebody who's showing up, gonna volunteer, they're gonna sign a form and say, okay, they're gonna drive a hay wagon, I don't know, are they gonna pass out burgers? If they're working at a bouncy house, I guess, if a kid falls over or a kid does something that a volunteer grabs them or the volunteer taps the kid on the butt, I'm worried. People we don't know. Just somebody showing up, as I said, just to do something. I don't think we should have volunteers. I don't think they should be driving hay wagons. I don't think they should be, maybe passing out literatures or handing people drinks, but I'd really be worried about.
So what would we do, Mayor? Just leave the bouncy house like unattended?
We have used high school kids, and I think the solicitor maybe asked me, that's been different. We've never had them either sign off or anything. It's just whoever shows up. I don't think we barely know the names of the high school kids that are sitting there monitoring the bouncy house. Go ahead.
Okay. Martha, Chris, she works with one of the counselors at the high school. And the students sign up through the counselors at the high school. You can do that now for quite a few years, okay, without a problem. Chris Bell and I, the mayor and Mark, will be driving the vehicles and also a couple members of the service department, so that's covered. That is covered. I see the point, Mayor, about, adults, especially adults showing up and volunteer like that. I'm sure they'll find people, but in today's
So is there a way we vet people, Mayor, or what would your suggestion be?
I guess we don't have enough time to do that. And anyway, I don't know that I would,
The only other alternative is we pay people, and that's kind of prohibitive.
Well, what are we paying, what do we need them for?
Well, we have 12 high school students that will help fulfill their community
Right,
service.
they do credit.
I think that's fine, okay? And I believe those 12 will be able to handle like the last couple of, well, not the last couple, but down through the years, the bouncy houses and also the flag pole. Okay, now I believe there is a couple from South Russell who you mentioned.
They're gonna do the table with.
And I think we can all vouch for them.
But we've had students volunteer for years, we just didn't have them sign the release form, but it came to the attention this year that the release form is in the village's best interest. And we have had adults volunteer in the past, we just never did the release form.
Right. Now, Martha has been concerned about the number of volunteers. What are we gonna do with them all? Well, at the last meeting, I brought the idea that a number of them could help us set the festival up that morning. And then maybe, let's say 5 adults. I just saw a number up there. And then at the end of the festival, the rest of those adults like take a shift, okay, and help us here at that. So there would be work for them to do, but the mayor has a good idea here, thought, and probably find one.
We kind of said, okay, so for the last 10 years, I've worked at handing out hot dogs in the service department, and me and my husband. So it gets tiring handing out 1,000 hot dogs to 1,000 people. It doesn't sound like it, but it does. And if the service department's gonna help with the tractors, I don't know if they are, I do think we need more volunteers. I mean, when you're standing there for 4 hours, it does.
Well, they'll, there's going to be 2 hours, there are 4 total hours for traffic, okay? So council will cover 2 of those hours, service will cover.
So she's saying you're not getting away from those hot dogs. I'll go with hot dogs. I'll do hot dogs.
Well, to Danielle's point, the service department has done the cooking.
But it has cooking that this year we may not have a full staff
Yeah.
because of the scheduling of the fall festival being so late, we have vacations and stuff. So, I'm just saying, I don't want to put hot dogs out of my hand and I don't appreciate, I don't
No.
really stand there 4 hours.
And I
So I'm
get it.
saying with Bobby's better.
And I've been there handing them out with you, and I know that, former council member has, been a lion's share and handing out of stuff, but she's no longer with us. So,
Well, I think council members want to help, I mean,
Yeah.
but I do think we need volunteers, more, what is it, more hands make less work,
Many hands make light work. Every time we complain, we heard that.
Solicitor question. What's the value of signing the waiver?
It might address some of the mayor's concerns. We have a name, we have a lease of liability, if something were to happen with the village. Honestly, you and the council members, quite frankly, are technically volunteers. They should also be signing the forms. I mean, unless you're working that day and actually getting paid for it as an employee, you should also be signing the form. You're technically a volunteer, you're releasing us from liability, the village from liability, should something happen. It does not necessarily go, to, the concern that I guess the mayor had with respect to not knowing these people as far as, I don't know, something that they did, but again, when they're on their own, that's kind of an assumption on their own.
So, Mayor, is one of your worries, like, it's not even a resident that comes, shows up at all?
I haven't seen the list, I don't know the people, and it doesn't matter, even if they're my next door neighbor, you never know. That's my concern, and I think, 16 years, nothing's happened, but say a volunteer burns their hand with hot dogs.
If it's under the release, other than gross negligence and intentional act by a village employee, I think the release should satisfy your concern. And if the bouncy house operator inappropriately touches somebody, that's on them, not the village. Unless the village has prior knowledge that this person is such a hacker.
Okay.
And if I'm wrong, solicitor, so I'm not sure where that leaves us, other than that Daniel doesn't want to cook all the hot dogs.
Okay.
So we get everybody to sign the waivers, council signs the waivers, and we go on.
Is it too far-fetched to say that this is part of council's responsibility as council to be a part of this festival?
Jerry, you showing your age?
I don't know that this is a part of the job description or part of you being an elected official. I don't know that you're required to be there.
We're technically salaried, right?
You are.
Yes.
Yes.
So, as a salary employee,
It's not required in my job, I volunteer.
I'm gonna take my pay in hot dogs.
Okay.
Cooked by Danielle.
Good job.
Anything else on the volunteers? Questions to the building committee?
No.
Okay. Let's talk about displays. Certain groups have been asked to come with displays. Jog Parks has been asked to show up with a person who would set up a tent and would stand there. NOPEC was talking about, I don't know if they're coming or not, but they would stand there and have a display. Is this an issue?
So,
They have a tent, we have the tent and table.
I mean, if you're going to allow one group, you pretty much cannot discriminate on any other group. But was it something that we solicited, or did they come to us and ask?
We solicited, I could say we solicited both those two groups.
Well, I think
and
NOPEC came to us.
No, I-
The sponsorship grant, that's one.
So it's like honestly, it's a bit of a quick club, right?
Hold on, I sent them an invitation, said, hey, we're having this fall festival, do you want to be there?
Well, that's part of the sponsorship grant, when
Oh.
they restrict it to 100.
They've been there in prior years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you allow businesses to come and promote and have a
That was a
table?
question last year.
Well, we do allow to come sell stuff.
Okay.
Well, didn't we have the popcorn people?
Well, yeah, you can,
And it wouldn't be a stretch to say all of the farm equipment and whatnot, lawn equipment, is a giant advertising for Chagrin Pet and Garden, right?
I mean, that's, if council wants to, invite, displays or groups, I think, you just have to know that you can't close off who comes and who doesn't.
You know, but, maybe different, but I'm thinking of the farmer's market. We let, the library could be there, Rescue Village could be there, but we told they told the League of Women Voters no.
And I was gonna say, again, it's not us telling them, that's
Okay,
the
but-
farmer's market,
But
it's
can
deciding
we
who the
tell
vendor is.
somebody, no, what if somebody wants to come with their insurance company? Can we say no?
Generally, I would say no, you cannot do that. If you're gonna allow private business or a private, like the Jug Foundation, Park Foundation is a private, nonprofit, but it's a private corporation.
So they could not be,
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is if you're gonna have foundation for the parks, you have private. If you're gonna have the Jug Park District, yes, public, I suppose, but I mean, where do you draw the line, I suppose, as to what groups can and cannot come? Is it your direct solicitation?
yeah, they were directly solicited by a park committee member. The Jogga Parks were invited to ask, please come.
Mhm.
And I did the same thing for the foundation, Jogga Parks, invited them to come.
But to put up a table, not just to come to the fall festival, but to
Well,
put up
come,
a
put
table.
up a table, put up displays,
Okay.
yes, to promote. And the same thing for the Spirit River Watershed Partners.
Okay, another private organization, which is okay, I'm just saying, then you just need to make sure that we're not, you know, picking and choosing who is coming. It's going to be either open to all or not.
Well, have we been approached by any other entity or person who wants to sell stuff at the fall festival? No, but I mean, typically we've had Lifelike come in, right? And they're UH or Clinic, one of the two, which are both private foundations. We've had the Chagrin Falls Fire Department out there. They're also a private organization. So if people ask you, Mayor, then I imagine you would have to say yes, and if there's an issue, then we would have a special council meeting and go over it.
Perhaps in COS.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we're at the Public Utilities Committee. Mark, you're up.
The public utilities, went through most of the stuff that, I would have talked about at council meeting at the strategic planning meeting. And, I would like just to note that our next meeting is currently scheduled, if this burger is available, would be October 7th at, 9 o'clock in the morning. And it would follow the Streets Committee meeting typically held on the first Friday of the month at 7:30 in the morning. So two meetings, 7:30 and 9 a.m. for public utilities and streets respectively. And Mayor, subject to comments by Councilman Berger, and public utilities.
Questions of the public utilities? Okay, coming around to the volunteer forums. Dennis, I think the rest of the meeting is yours.
Well, I believe that,
No, the
Chris
first
is
one's
down.
mine.
Oh,
We just, yeah, so the first one's mine, and we continue to, I know this is observed in this table, but with getting the consultant on board, it is still our goal to have the tiered pay system in place prior to December 31st. So with that, I'd like to leave this as table so that we can move on it as soon as we have that information.
Okay, moving on. Dennis?
all right, I'd like to introduce and consider for adoption an ordinance amending section 252.12 of the codified ordinances of the Village of South Russell, declaring an emergency and waiting for the reading. So moved.
Second.
Second roll call.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Kowalski,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Bell, Berger,
Aye.
Stanton,
Aye. Motion to adopt.
Second.
Kavanaugh, Licky,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Bell,
Aye.
Berger,
Aye.
Stanton,
I'd like to introduce and consider for adoption an ordinance amending section 220.03A of the codified ordinances of the Village of South Russell, declaring an emergency and waiving further readings. So moved.
Second.
Roll
Kavanaugh,
call.
aye, Licky,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Bell,
Aye.
Berger,
Aye.
Stanton,
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Kavanaugh, Licky,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Bell,
Aye.
Berger,
Aye.
Stanton,
Roll call. First two ordinance passed, thanks, Dennis.
All right. I'd like to introduce and consider for adoption an ordinance amending section 252.03F of the codified ordinances of the Village of South Russell, declaring an emergency and waiving further reading. So moved.
Second.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Stuckey.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Burger.
Aye.
Stanton.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Stuckey.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Burger.
Aye.
Stanton.
Motion passed, ordinance passed.
I'd like to introduce and consider for adoption an ordinance amending section 1440.04E of the codified ordinances of the Village of South Russell, declaring an emergency and waiving further readings. So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Stuckey.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Burger. Stanton.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Stuckey.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Burger.
Aye.
Stanton.
Motion ordinance passed.
I'd like to introduce and consider for adoption a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor, waiving further reading. So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Kavanaugh. Stuckey.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Burger.
Aye.
Stanton.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Stuckey.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Burger.
Aye.
Stanton.
Ordinance passed.
I'd like to introduce and consider for adoption an ordinance approving the investment of monies in the village treasury that will not be required to be used by the village for a period of at least 6 months, authorizing the fiscal officer to take the necessary action to effectuate this investment and declaring an emergency and waiving further reading. So moved.
Second.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Stuckey.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Burger.
Aye.
Stanton.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Stuckey.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Burger.
Aye.
Stanton.
Ordinance passed.
I'd like to introduce and consider for adoption an appropriation amendment increasing the street maintenance fund expenses $6,500, declaring an emergency and waiving further readings. So moved.
Second.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Stuckey.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Burger.
Aye.
Stanton.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Stuckey.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Burger.
Aye.
Stanton.
Amendment passed.
All right, moving on to the bills list. I'd like to make a motion to ratify the bills of 8/12/2022 in the amount of $59,706.49 and the bills of 8/30/2020.
Yes, I apologize. Can we split these into two?
Because you're, sure. Okay, so the motion stands at the ratification of the bills of 8/12/2022 in the amount of $59,706.49. So moved.
Need a second? Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. We need a roll call.
Roll call.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Stuckey.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Burger.
Abstain.
Stanton.
Motion passed.
I'd like to make a further motion that we ratify the bills list of 8/30/2022 in the amount of $32,911.90. So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Do other than that.
Kavanaugh.
Just quickly, on the website, the picture does not show Mr. Bell and myself. It's got last year's council members, and I'm wondering if that can be updated.
Yeah, it was updated. I wonder if they may have used the backup if they had a problem. We'll take a look at it tomorrow, we'll fix tomorrow.
Thank you.
That was always on the roof. That one night it did.
Stuckey.
No, nothing.
Porter.
Did you do the, motion for the culverts?
Yes.
Yes.
Did we? For a six? Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Make sure. Yeah.
Yes.
If you would. Thank you. That's nothing, Daniel. Come on.
Bell.
Nothing.
Burger.
None.
Stanton.
Before we go to adjourn, remember, we have a special council meeting on September 26th at 6:30. We have a motion to adopt. Pardon me, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.